Chapter 1053. To be honest, the moment they sensed the abnormal fluctuations, everyone almost stopped breathing. In the witness room, Miss Little Liang was even more nervous. After all, Miss Little Liang was only 2 years old and still growing up. Of course, the average lifespan of a normal cockroach was about 2 years, but cockroaches in the cultivation world were different. Although Miss Little Liang was already 2 years old, based on the average lifespan of cockroaches in the cultivation world, she was still just a child. By the way, Miss Little Liang was actually Cockroach Wenxiang's daughter, and her full name was Cockroach Little Liang. If Cockroach Wenxiang hadn't forced it, it would never have left its dark and damp little cave to come here and testify for someone else. Cockroaches and humans had never been able to get along with each other for a long time. Miss Little Liang still remembered being chased and beaten up by humans. In fact, the cockroach race had always been very timid, but humans still viewed them as a thorn in their side, and would kill them as soon as they saw any trace of them. Not all cockroaches liked to live in dirty places like the sewers. Nowadays, more and more cockroaches were beginning to pursue a materialistic life. Cockroaches in the cultivation world could even voluntarily decompose all kinds of harmful garbage for cultivators. All living things were equal, and in an endless cycle. The creatures at the top and the creatures at the bottom formed a cycle of their own. However, it was a pity that not everyone understood this logic. In the witness protection room, Miss Little Liang was a little apprehensive. Just then, a suffocating murderous aura came from the computer screen in Miss Little Liang's room. It was a black shadow that couldn't be seen clearly. But it was clear that this black shadow was also a little baffled by the situation in front of it. Because it didn't see anyone. That Miss Little Liang isn't here? Wu Yuanji, who was in the form of a black shadow, was full of questions. He suspected that he had come to the wrong place, but this was clearly the witness protection room, and it was in use at that. If she wasn't here, where could she have gone? Are you looking for me? Just as Wu Yuanji was full of doubts, a delicate and tender voice came over. It sounded like a little girl's voice, and it was obviously a young Lolita's voice. Wu Yuanji carefully scanned his surroundings and confirmed that there was no one here. There was also no one who used a Lolita voice as a voice actress to trick a rich otaku into tipping 100,000 yuan. The lesson from that live broadcast incident was quite tragic. Wu Yuanji even wanted to defend the rich otaku who had been tricked. The trauma of the soul was sometimes much greater than the physical damage. Are you here for me? Just as Wu Yuanji was confused, the loli's voice sounded again. Wu Yuanji followed the sound and searched the room for a moment. Finally, he confirmed that the sound came from the fish tank in front of him. In the fish tank, there was no fish. A small cockroach was looking up at him. Cockroach. Wu Yuanji was stunned by the scene before him. He was considering the possibility of a problem. Could that legendary Miss Little Liang be? Are you looking for Miss Little Liang? I'm Little Liang. Miss Little Liang's antennae trembled as she gazed at the black shadow. Cockroaches had a natural fondness for shadows, so the moment Miss Little Liang saw Wu Yuanji, she didn't feel the slightest bit afraid. On the contrary, she felt a strange affinity for him. Recovering from his shock, Wu Yuanji laughed wildly in his heart. Crazy! This bunch of people had really gone crazy. They were actually using a cockroach as a witness? How could the application for a witness be approved by such an unreasonable request? But since Wu Yuanji was already here, he naturally couldn't make a wasted trip. Since he had already confirmed that this cockroach was the legendary Miss Little Liang, then please go to hell, Miss Little Liang. Wu Yuanji had already killed a lot of people who had gotten in his way, so he naturally wouldn't feel any pity for a mere 2-year-old cockroach. The shadow he had turned into began to riot with an extremely vicious expression. Before his palm even landed, a wave of spiritual pressure had already turned into a powerful gust of wind. Bang! The fish tank was directly shattered. Miss Little Liang withstood the enormous spiritual pressure. She felt like she was about to die, and was in a state where she was on the brink of death, and soon fell unconscious. Lowly creature. Wu Yuanji withdrew his palm and sneered disdainfully. It was just a cockroach. If he couldn't even deal with a cockroach, then he, the devil's lawyer, shouldn't be able to survive in the cultivation world. But just as Wu Yuanji was about to leave, The seemingly dead Miss Little Liang actually came back to life. Her antennae twitched, and then she actually flipped over and came back to life. It hurts. I'm only 2 years old, still a child. Can you not use so much force? Why can't we talk things out? Miss Little Liang protested. She was actually still alive? The corners of Wu Yuanji's mouth twitched. Without the slightest hesitation, he slapped Miss Little Liang again. This time, he was sure that he had hit Miss Little Liang. Even a cultivator wouldn't be able to withstand this slap of his. Anyone below the soul formation stage would die on the spot if they were hit directly on the top of their heads. A mere cockroach still dared to be so arrogant. Wu Yuanji moved his palm away. It was as if he could already see Miss Little Liang's miserable state. It was just a cockroach. He had probably already smashed it into a meat patty, right? Wu Yuanji sneered. However, Miss Little Liang, who had already been flattened, actually bulged up like an inflatable doll and came back to life. I told you not to use so much force. It's against the law. The protection of minors. Miss Little Liang protested. Wu Yuanji was alarmed by such a tenacious vitality. So the undying cockroach's telepathic message was true? Were cockroaches really unkillable creatures? Wu Yuanji clutched his head. He felt like his worldview was about to collapse. But the truth was that only Miss Little Liang had such a strong vitality. Because she was the descendant of Cockroach Wenxiang. And what kind of cockroach was Cockroach Wenxiang? This was the strongest cockroach that had grown up eating the leftovers of Wang Ling's crispy noodle snacks. The descendants of the strongest cockroach naturally inherited its ability to withstand beatings. Furthermore, Miss Little Liang's strong ability to withstand beatings astonished all the police officers at the police station. Thanks to Miss Little Liang stalling for time, they had already set up a barrier around the entire room, while Wu Yuanji had been killing her. They had even cut off the power. The moment the light in the room dimmed, Wu Yuanji, who had turned into a yin state, realized that this was a trap. He was trapped. Gao Tian and Audiobook had been waiting at the door for a long time, ready to pull in the net. Audiobook. Lawyer Wu, you can't escape. Gao Tian. Lawyer Wu, we will prosecute you for destroying evidence, animal abuse, and cultivating a forbidden spell. You can remain silent. But everything you say will be used as evidence in court. Chapter 1054. On the other side, Fu Fuxing was still waiting in the detention center. Instead of good news, he received the news that Wu Yuanji had been caught alive on the spot. Fu Fuxing instantly felt all his hopes turn to dust. According to the police officers in the detention center, Fu Fuxing's hair had turned a lot white that night. Wu Yuanji had also been put in spirit shackles, and his shadow form had been removed on the spot. When Gao Tian asked Wu Yuanji how he could display such power, Wu Yuanji's answer shocked everyone present. Frozen dumplings. I ate a bag of frozen dumplings, Wu Yuanji said. Frozen dumplings again? Chief Zhao's eyes widened. After hearing Zheng Tianxiang's confession, he had gone to buy a bag that night. And it was broccoli-flavored frozen dumplings produced by the Office of Strategic Deception. This bag of frozen dumplings was more expensive than broccoli produced by the Office of Strategic Deception. You might as well buy some broccoli and mash it up to make your own dumplings. What's the filling of the dumplings? Even Gao Tian couldn't help being curious. Sanxian. I remember its infant formula, nutritious dumplings for pregnant women, said Wu Yuanji. Why are you eating this? Are you pregnant? Little Silver had a surprised look on his face. My firm also needs to support people. I bought these frozen dumplings in the return goods section, and they were cheap. Return goods section again. Gao Tian lowered his head in thought. Return goods section, frozen dumplings and nutritious dumplings for pregnant women. The basic information was exactly the same as what Father Zheng had confessed back then. Could it be that some manufacturer had experimented with these frozen dumplings and added illegal drugs? Gao Tian thought of one possibility. It was everyone's responsibility to investigate drugs and illicit drugs, which was something that people all over the world should be responsible for and concerned about. How many families had been destroyed because of these drugs and illicit drugs, and how many anti-drug police officers had been sacrificed on the front lines because of these hateful drug dealers? The crackdown on drugs and illicit drugs should be a national boycott campaign. And new drugs were now emerging endlessly on the market. If someone really used frozen dumplings to make this kind of confusing drug, it would simply be outrageous behavior. Immediately investigate the dumplings thoroughly. It was clear that Chief Zhao had also realized the seriousness of the problem, and he couldn't sit still. But when Audiobook heard about frozen dumplings for pregnant women, a hesitant expression appeared on his face. He remembered that his Shifu's mother, Master Wang, had gotten pregnant a while ago, and it seemed that she had bought a lot of things from the cultivation department store, and frozen dumplings had been on the list. When he had visited the Wang family's small villa before, Mother Wang had been returning the goods because she had bought too many things, and Audiobook remembered that a box of frozen dumplings had been loaded into the truck. So in the return area, there was a box of frozen dumplings that had been in the Wang family's small villa. As for whether this box of frozen dumplings had anything to do with the dumplings that Wu Yuanji and Father Zheng had eaten, Audiobook wasn't sure. It can't be such a coincidence, right? Actually, Audiobook was still a little scared. He recorded this matter and planned to send a message to his master to confirm. He knew that his master loved to enchant things for him to play with. If this frozen dumpling was really enchanted by his master, then everything made sense. After eating the frozen dumplings enchanted by his Shifu, it would be strange if his realm didn't rise quickly. It would be fine if the sudden increase in combat power was used in the right way, but if it was used by people like Wu Yuanji who wanted to use the sudden increase in power to do things that violated the law, not only would it bring trouble to society, but the police station would also be busy. During the interrogation that night, Wu Yuanji confessed to all of his crimes. He had been caught red-handed, and Gao Tian's law enforcement recorder had recorded it on the spot, as well as Miss Little Liang's disability report. Wu Yuanji couldn't defend himself even if he wanted to. Wu Yuanji might be facing a sentence of up to 100 years. This demon of the legal world had stirred up trouble for so long by relying on his knowledge and ruthless methods, but in the end, he couldn't escape the punishment of the law. The next day was September 20th, which was the 37th day of the summer break. Fu Fuxing appeared in court alone. He didn't have a defense lawyer. Because of Wu Yuanji's arrest and the fact that Fu Fuxing had hired Wu Yuanji, the public enemy of the legal world. When Fu Fuxing once again requested to change his defense lawyer, there wasn't a single lawyer in the entire legal circle in Songhai City who was willing to step forward to help him fight this case. Similarly, Miss Little Liang's appearance also shocked the entire cultivation world. When Wang Ling got up in the morning, the class chat group had indeed exploded with chatter. Letting a cockroach act as a witness, no one would have thought that this kind of thing would actually happen. A cockroach? Is that for real? Did my prophecy come true? Super Chen exclaimed. A while ago, he had mentioned that there might be some cockroach or other insects at home who might have seen what had happened. Who would have thought that a cockroach would actually appear in court to testify? Because it was a public trial, a lot of people directly took screenshots of the live stream and sent them to the group. When everyone saw Miss Little Liang state the facts in court with two antennae on her head, they actually couldn't help laughing. Why does this cockroach look a little cute? I've always thought cockroaches were disgusting. Maybe it's because this little cockroach has a Lolita voice. A Lolita voice, sure enough, this was an evil thing. Some people used it to swindle money, and some cockroaches used it to act cute. At that moment, Teacher Pan couldn't help speaking in the group. Students, the facts prove that all living things are equal to begin with. As long as the conservation of living things is maintained, even cockroaches will help humanity develop. This is a very dramatic event, and it's worth all of us thinking about it. Since that's the case, students, teacher will give you another assignment. Everyone, write an essay of no less than 800 words on the topic of cockroaches and humans. The theme must be clear, the idea must be clear, and the positive energy must be promoted. This will demonstrate the special bond and friendship between living things. The class chat group instantly fell into an awkward silence. Teacher Pan wasn't happy. Students, why aren't you saying anything? Do you think the words in the essay are too few? How about this? The first 5 students who raise their hands to answer only need to write 800 words, and the rest of you must write at least 2,000 words. Seeing this, Wang Ling instantly replied with an ellipsis. Very good. Congratulations to the first person to write an 800-word essay. Student Wang Ling. Teacher Pan nodded in satisfaction. F***K. Wang Ling, I knew you were spying on us. I've never seen your hand speed so fast before. Superchin couldn't help ridiculing. Chapter 1055. In the end, in the second trial, Fu Fuxing admitted that he had relied on Zheng Jingxuan's early works to plagiarize the competition, and at the same time he exposed the biggest mastermind behind the scenes, Lu Yi. Lu Yi was already dead, and dead people didn't have to bear criminal responsibility, but that didn't mean that civil compensation couldn't be made. Father Zheng's request was very simple. He wanted Raven Studio, which was led by Lu Yi and Fu Fuxing, to compensate for all the illegal profits from student Zheng's early magic treasure designs, a total of 365 million yuan, as well as to publicly apologize to the deceased Zheng Jingxian and restore his reputation. At the same time, Father Zheng also requested that the compensation be used as a supplementary prize for the magic treasure design competition, and called it the Jingxian Prize to encourage participants who could truly design original magic treasures. The above claims were also upheld by the court on the spot. Chief Judge Liang Xian made the final decision. At last, this plagiarism case that had left the Zheng family uneasy finally turned around on September 21st, 3 years later, on the 38th day of the summer break. The police officers in charge of the case back then, as well as the judge and the jury, all received disciplinary warnings. They had made a wrong ruling when the facts weren't clear and the evidence wasn't sufficient, which was a fact that the Zheng family had been troubled. On the other hand, this also proved that justice was fair, and reflected the courage to admit one's mistakes and to find out the truth. The wrongful case from 3 years ago came to an end, and Father Zheng's family's troubles were resolved. But for Wang Ling, the Wang family's troubles had just begun. He received a text message from Audiobook. It was about the frozen dumplings that Father Zheng and that demon lawyer Wu Yuanji had both mentioned. Because Chief Zhao, the head of the General Police Department, suspected that someone had disguised the dumpling fillings with drugs, he was paying a lot of attention to the origin of the frozen dumplings. Wang Ling couldn't help but raise his guard. What was certain at the moment was that Mother Wang had indeed bought frozen dumplings suitable for pregnant women a while ago, but because it had been an impulsive purchase, she had later returned some of the goods when she came to her senses. This included the box of frozen dumplings. Wang Ling's great enchantment spell had the power to turn something rotten into something magical. He had enchanted a tricycle, a microwave oven, a toilet, and a while ago, he had even enchanted his bedroom door. But he wouldn't be so bored as to enchant a bag of frozen dumplings with such a mystical heavenly Dao spell. The dumplings were perfectly fine. Why did he have to enchant them? So what if he was enlightened? Would it become as crispy noodle snacks after being enlightened? Would a water margin hero card appear from eating dumplings? No. Since it wasn't possible, why did he still need to enlighten it? But he paid particular attention to the origin of these dumplings. He felt that it was necessary to investigate what had happened to this box of frozen dumplings that had been delivered to the small villa. He summed up the changes in Father Zheng and Wu Yuanji after eating the frozen dumplings. First, there was the abnormal growth in the realm. After eating the dumplings, almost all of them reached the nascent soul stage. He had directly crossed an entire realm. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible to cultivate from the golden core stage to the nascent soul stage without hundreds of years of cultivation. Secondly, and most importantly, the powers that Zheng Tianqiang and Wu Yuanji obtained were all related to the shadow, so there might be some kind of connection between them. And Wang Ling very quickly thought of a possibility. At the same time, in order to confirm his guess, Wang Ling quickly replied to Audiobook. He needed to confirm his theory further, which was that he had to get close to Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang. But he couldn't go in person. He was just a 16-year-old high school student. Even if Audiobook could facilitate his job, if he went to the police station to meet a criminal, it might have a negative impact on him if he was discovered. So Wang Ling thought of a special method. On the other side, Audiobook stared at his phone as he read Wang Ling's astonishing reply. His eyes were filled with astonishment. Possession. That was right. In order to get close to Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang, Wang Ling decided to use an old-fashioned method, possession from a distance. This was a heavenly Dao spell based on the Great Soul Fusion spell, and Wang Ling could freely choose a person to possess. But at the same time, this spell was very risky. Apart from blood relatives or people with a high degree of rapport, it would be risky for Wang Ling to possess anyone else. This was because not every body with an excessively powerful soul could withstand Wang Ling's torment. It wasn't hard to imagine a body bursting if it couldn't withstand such a powerful soul. The reason why he chose Audiobook was very simple. Audiobook had been his disciple for several months, and their relationship could be considered close. Most importantly, it was Wang Ling who had taught Audiobook the cultivation technique he was currently learning. Thus, Wang Ling judged that it was very unlikely that anything would happen to Audiobook's body. Furthermore, even if something did happen, Wang Ling could think of a way to reconstruct Audiobook's body. In any case, they were all on the same side, so it wouldn't matter if something went wrong. But it would be different if he possessed someone else's body. Even if something went wrong, Wang Ling would be able to solve it. It might still cause pain to other people. This was the first time Wang Ling had possessed someone else's body, and also the first time Audiobook had been possessed by Wang Ling. The last time Audiobook had been possessed was when he had accepted Jinka's power. In fact, that couldn't be considered a true fusion, and was just a simple form of enchantment. And Audiobook himself still had his own thoughts and consciousness. But if he possessed him, the situation would be different. While Wang Ling was possessing him, Audiobook would lose all memory of the time he had been possessed. Thus, when Wang Ling carefully wrote out the precautions for possessing him, he thought that Audiobook would be afraid of these obvious side effects. Not everyone could withstand the feeling of being possessed by a foreign body. Some people would even experience stress reactions for a very long time after being possessed, such as vomiting, fatigue, higher body temperature, increased frequency of toilet visits, and becoming irritable. That was right. These stress reactions were similar to the early signs of pregnancy. Wang Ling was worried that Audiobook would refuse, so he explained all the possible side effects clearly to him. But who the hell knew that Audiobook's reaction seemed to be especially excited? Shifu, when are you coming? GKD Shifu. I can't wait. As your dearest disciple, you must always remember that there will always be a place for you in my body. Chapter 1056. The matter of the magic treasure design case had come to an end, but that didn't mean that Audiobook's task was over. The Black Shadow Army that had escaped in the Palace of Mirrors was now his primary target to investigate and track down. Huaxiao Alliance had secretly handed this task over to the Office of Strategic Deception, and Audiobook was the chief commander representing the Office of Strategic Deception in searching for clues about the Black Shadow Army. This organization was far more cunning than Audiobook had imagined. Little Silver and Loopy Toad had been working together to search for the aura of the Black Shadow Army recently, but to no avail. Even the Lord and Lady of the Castle of the Office of Strategic Deception's Intelligence Department hadn't been able to intercept any valuable clues. It was very obvious that this Black Shadow Army had a strict management system to prevent internal information from being accidentally leaked. This was a very tightly managed organization, and behind such a strict management system, there had to be a huge unspeakable secret. At that moment, Wang Ling was attached to Audiobook's body, while his real body was in standby mode. In standby mode, it was as if Wang Ling had been implanted with an AI system to do some of the things he usually did, which was a little similar to an intelligent takeover state. Fortunately, Wang Ling didn't usually speak much, so even in this takeover state, there wasn't too much of a contrast. It was just that in this takeover mode, Wang Ling wouldn't take the initiative to attack if he encountered danger, and would instead passively defend himself. In layman's terms, he wouldn't fight back if he was hit. He just wanted to get close to Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang in Audiobook's body to see if their current situation matched up with what he had guessed. It wouldn't take too long, and Wang Ling felt that it wouldn't be a big deal if he left his real body for a while. This was Wang Ling's first time in Audiobook's body. Audiobook was slightly taller than Wang Ling, and had the body of a fully developed adult. It was just that when he had just entered Audiobook's body, Wang Ling suddenly felt a stabbing pain in his back. This was a protruding lumbar disc. It was an occupational disease that had arisen from Aujua's work after he became the director of the general administration of 100 schools. Cultivators also had protruding lumbar discs, which were very difficult to treat. Cultivators had higher bone density than ordinary people to begin with, so it was very painful to press the protruding part back into place after a protruding lumbar disc. Aujua usually suffered from the pain of a protruding lumbar disc, but now that Wang Ling was in his body, Aujua's soul could rest for a short while. Being an adult is really tough, Wang Ling sighed in his heart. The two souls shared one body, and Wang Ling's soul took over Aujua's body. After losing control of his body, Aujua no longer felt the pain of a protruding disc, but he still felt it. Shifu, I don't think I can move my body. Have you already come in? Wang Ling. Don't use this kind of ambiguous question. Master? Master? Aujua continued to ask relentlessly. Helpless, Wang Ling could only answer, Phew. Aujua heaved a sigh of relief. Well, is it comfortable in my body? Wang Ling. Aujua, no. I mean, is Shifu used to using my body? He knew that he had a protruding disc, even though he was relaxed in this state of soul liberation. But she was still worried that he wouldn't be used to his body. The biggest problem with a protruding disc was that the bones in his waist would bulge out bit by bit as he walked, so Aujua had to straighten his waist every time he walked to push the protruding bones back a little. In fact, after the trial of the magic treasure plagiarism case, Aujua's protruding disc had flared up again. He had been lying in bed at home, resting with a piece of soft jade that gave off a cold aura around his waist. Generally speaking, the pain caused by a protruding disc would lessen a lot if he lay down for half an hour. But Wang Ling realized that he couldn't delay any longer. He directly manipulated Aujua's body to teleport to a thicket near Songhai First Prison, and then walked out of it. This wasn't Aujua's first time here, and returning to the prison felt like returning home. Seeing that it was Aujua, the guards at the gate opened the gate one after another without even checking his ID. There were scanners at the prison gates to prevent people from changing their appearance and sneaking in. They could even detect true immortals. Thus, it was almost impossible for someone to disguise themselves as Aujua and sneak into the prison. Only an almighty like Wang Ling, who possessed heavenly Tao, wouldn't give himself away. Director Zhuo, you're here again. I've already tidied up the guest room for you. If you're busy today, you can directly stay in there. Wang Ling was stunned. There was actually a private guest room for Aujua in this prison. It seemed that the relationship between Warden Liang and Aujua was indeed extraordinary. The truth was that Warden Liang had always held Aujua in the highest regard. Aujua's performance was linked to Songhai First Prisons. Now that more and more bigwigs had been arrested and sent to Songhai First Prison, the reputation of the prison and Warden Liang's reputation in the outside world had been boosted by several halos. The salaries of all the prison staff had also increased substantially, so when everyone saw Aujua arrive, they all had smiles on their faces. Wang Ling wasn't good at smiling, but in order not to give himself away, he used Aujua's body to make several fake smiles in a row. Although they looked fake, at least he managed to bluff his way through. In the special prison cell, the old devil, master of a mortal mansion Chengyu and evil sword god were still locked up together. Father Zheng and Wu Yuanji, who had just been detained, were locked up in separate high-class cells. These two were high-class prisoners, and after the first trial, Father Zheng was finally sentenced to 8 years in prison, which could already be considered a light punishment. Furthermore, Father Zheng's repentance was pretty good, and he and Wu Yuanji were locked up separately, so the conditions around them weren't too bad. As for Wu Yuanji, he was very miserable. Although it was also a high-class cell, Wu Yuanji's cell was heavily guarded. This devil's lawyer had once relied on his own strength to free a lot of prisoners who had originally been facing heavy sentences. The prison guards of Songhai First Prison had held a deep grudge against Wu Yuanji in those years. Now that Wu Yuanji had been arrested, he would naturally receive some special preferential treatment. Wu Yuanji, a prison guard, walked into Wu Yuanji's cell. In order to satisfy the mental needs of the 3 special felons in the special prison cell, and to prevent them from suffering from mental illness in the prison's enclosed environment for a long time, You are now required to play mahjong with them for an hour every day. Wu Yuanji. When he reached the entrance of the special prison cell, he saw 2 prison guards carrying a prisoner covered with a white cloth out of the cell. The prisoner was about to be sent for emergency treatment. Wu Yuanji. This is? Prison guard. The last one to play mahjong with them. Wu Yuanji. Prison guard. Don't try to play tricks while playing mahjong. Otherwise, you'll be the next one to be carried out. Wu Yuanji. Chapter 1057. Using Ajua's body, Wang Ling felt that it was much more convenient to do things in prison. Ajua was like a free pass, and he could go anywhere he wanted. Even in the special prison area, he didn't need to report to Warden Liang. He just needed to let the prison guards know. This wasn't a violation of the rules, since it was Ajua who had captured the old devil and his group in the official news report, so it was understandable for him to visit them. Wang Ling decided to go see Father Zheng first. Father Zheng was naturally in a very good mood now that his grievances had been cleared. Even if he had to go to jail, he would accept it. The prison had already prepared a job for Father Zheng. If he worked hard, he might be able to get out earlier with a reduced sentence. Wang Ling met Father Zheng in a factory inside the prison, where he was pouring talisman paper pulp into a machine. This was a talisman factory, and Father Zheng and his fellow prisoners were working on producing talisman paper for drawing talismans. Talismans were a necessity in the cultivation world, and billions of talisman paper were consumed every day. Most of these were cleaning talismans or purification talismans and so on, which were used to keep the city clean and filter out poisonous particles in the air, in order to restore freshness to the city and give the citizens a blue sky. To maintain such a large consumption, the production of talisman paper was very important. Thus, 90% of the talisman paper consumed every day was basically produced by prisoners working day and night in various prisons across the country. Talismans like the cleaning talisman were relatively cheap to make, and didn't need to be made of very good paper. It was best to reduce costs and maintain the environment. If they used a large processing plant to import high-grade talisman paper instead, it would be like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. Of course, apart from producing talisman paper, Father Zheng's most important task was to draw talismans. Father Zheng was currently the person with the highest realm in this factory, and he also had some experience in drawing talismans. Not only could he produce thousands of simple talismans like the cleaning talisman in a day, he could also teach his fellow prisoners how to draw them. This way, the prison wouldn't have to hire someone to draw them, and would save a lot of money. Father Zheng's move not only saved the prison money, it could also be considered a way for his fellow prisoners to make a living. After they got out of prison, they definitely wouldn't be jobless. As long as they could draw cleaning talismans, they could join a talisman processing company to make money. Although the salary was not high, it was not a problem for him to support himself. Moreover, as long as one was willing to work in a talisman processing company, one could try to draw higher-level talismans. After a long time, one could also be promoted. Thus, Warden Liang was naturally happy to see this result. This month, it was likely that the red flags of all the major prisons would stop at his Songhai First Prison. When Wang Ling arrived at the processing plant, he saw Father Zheng working hard from a distance. "Director Zhua, should I bring Zheng Tianqiang over to you?" asked a prison guard who was supervising the factory. "Shifu, just wave your hand." Ajua's voice sounded. Wang Ling made a hand gesture in accordance with Ajua's words. The prison guard quickly understood what he meant, and after nodding at Ajua, he quickly retreated. He didn't get too close to Zheng Tianqiang. This distance was enough for him to use his soul sense to explore. Standing on the spot, Wang Ling frowned deeply at the information he had obtained from Zheng Tianqiang. It was very clear that Father Zheng's newly awakened strength wasn't his own, but an external force. This force was very similar to the shock wave from Mother Wang's fetal movement in the Wang family's small villa. Was it Anwan who had given them strength? Wang Ling never thought that his little sister would actually be stronger than he had imagined. Mother Wang had been pregnant for less than a month, but she already had self-awareness and had even given outsiders strength. And this strength had probably spread from the box of frozen dumplings. This was a surprising result. What a naughty little sister. But at least Wang Ling now knew how his little sister Wang Nuan could give others strength. Why did she have to start with frozen dumplings? This was enough to prove that Nuan's current strength couldn't be directly bestowed, and could only be used indirectly. For example, she could inject her own energy into a bag of frozen food, and the person who ate it would become the inheritor of this strength. Apart from this, Wang Ling also realized that Father Zheng and Wu Yuanji's strength had something in common with their shadows. It was as if their shadows had been endowed with some kind of consciousness, and could interact with their bodies in some way. This was also the reason why Father Zheng and Wu Yuanji could borrow the power of shadows to travel back and forth between computer screens. But it was very clear that while shadows were powerful, Father Zheng and Wu Yuanji's awakening wasn't complete. They had been bestowed with the power of shadows, but hadn't been able to unleash their true strength. Using shadows to travel back and forth between screens was just a routine operation. Just as Wang Ling was about to probe deeper with his spiritual senses, a hidden murderous intent came from outside the prison. Songhai First Prison. Ever since the last time Shadow Stream people had broken through the walls to escape, the high walls and barrier around the prison had been reinforced. Not everyone could enter the prison as easily as Audiobook. At that moment, someone was looking down at Songhai First Prison from high ground. Baiyu was dressed entirely in white, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. Everyone, our mission this time is only Zheng Tianqiang and Wu Yuanji. Everyone must capture these two alive. After returning from the world of the Palace of Mirrors, the Black Shadow Army had been waiting for the data on the Shadow Wave. They had divided their strength to monitor Wang Ling's family villa, but they never expected the Shadow Wave to suddenly shift and appear on Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang. Bai Yuquan was overjoyed at this discovery. As long as they could capture these two people with the Shadow Wave, there was hope for them to revitalize their force. Unfortunately, Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang, these two idiots, didn't know how to thoroughly activate their formidable power. Prison break. This was tantamount to declaring war. The Black Shadow Army had been quiet for a long time after leaving the world of the Palace of Mirrors. They had been waiting for the right time to announce their force to the world. And now the opportunity had come. Shadow Brute, it's your turn. Bai Yuquan said softly. In the crowd, a shadow giant that was 5 or 6 meters tall appeared. His feet shook the ground, and his entire body was wreathed in black shadows. Holding 2 shadow axes in his hands, he directly raised them and charged at the front gate of the prison at Bai Youquan's command. At the same time, Songhai First Prison's most advanced alarm system broke the silence of the night as the shadow giant attacked the gate. Chapter 1058. The sudden attack instantly put Songhai First Prison on the highest alert. Even though the external defense was impregnable, Bai Yuquan had definitely come prepared since he had dared to launch an attack at this time. Thanks to the special power of Destiny Dao, the Black Shadow Army was stronger than cultivators of ordinary realms to begin with. Coupled with the existence of Shadow Brute, this was a powerful siege weapon which Bai Yuquan had specially designed. Shadow Brute wasn't a real human, but a manifestation of the power of Destiny Dao. It was shaped like a black shadow and built like a mythical giant, and it gave off a powerful sense of oppression. Under the cover of the black shadow, a chilly wind blew in the face, stirring up the clouds and wind. Team 1 defend. Team 1 defend. Team 2 attack. The entire prison has entered the highest defense mode. Close the cages. Prevent the prisoners from escaping. It had happened suddenly, but fortunately, under Warden Liang's guidance, Songhai First Prison had already taken the appropriate precautions. The prison guards performed their respective duties and immediately launched the first round of defense against Bai Youquan's Black Shadow Army. Some people made hand signs to strengthen the barrier, and some people escaped from the secret exit of the barrier to fight the Black Shadow Army. They only had one task, and that was to stop the enemy's attack in the shortest time possible, and kill all the enemy's malice in the cradle. The purpose of attacking the prison was nothing more than to free the prisoners, and the other party's objective for choosing this time to attack was actually very clear. It was likely that they were after that demon lawyer Wu Yuanji and Father Zheng Tianqiang. Warden Liang knew that the situation wasn't good, and immediately rushed to the front line to direct the battle. Standing at the entrance to the prison, he snapped his fingers and changed into the warden's custom-made leather combat suit. Have you determined the number of invaders? Lord Warden, there are a lot of them. There are no less than 100 of them. This is a well-prepared invasion. Warden Liang immediately frowned. Call the city police station immediately and ask for reinforcements from the nearest Immortal Arts mobile squad. Yes. After doing all this, Warden Liang's gaze turned to the giant shadow brute, who was trying to tear the barrier apart. As the warden, he could tell at a glance that this big guy was probably the most difficult person to deal with. Netherworld chains. With a wave of his hand, 2 chains instantly shot out of the crack in the air like swimming dragons. Following Warden Liang's will, the chains instantly climbed onto Shadow Brute's hands and feet, and firmly held it back. Success! As expected of the warden, the crowd was in high spirits. Warden Liang's participation immediately raised the morale of the prison guards and warriors present. The Netherworld flame on the Netherworld chain has the ability to devour spiritual energy. I heard that the spirit shackles were developed based on the Netherworld chain. This big guy probably won't be able to escape now, someone said. Let's charge together. Take down these invaders in one fell swoop. The prison guards brandished their immortal swords with chains in their hands, and launched an all-out assault on the Black Shadow Army. But everyone never noticed the figure of the mastermind behind this battle, Bai Yuquan. The current situation seemed to be the defeat of the Black Shadow Army, but in fact, everything was under Bai Yuquan's control. The Prison Combative Police Regiment, made up of prison guards from all over the country, was a more mature combat police force than the Immortal Arts Mobile Squad, and was currently the strongest official combat group under Huaxiao Alliance apart from the Special Forces. Bai Yuquan had wanted to test the strength of the Prison Combative Police Force, but the result was more disappointing than he had imagined. Bai Yuquan sighed softly, then murmured softly, "There's no time to play these family games, Shadow Brute." Although his voice wasn't loud, it seemed to give Shadow Brute an even more powerful ability, and the instant Bai Yuquan's voice fell, all the Black Shadow Army fell into a frenzy. The Netherworld chain is about to break. Warden Liang turned pale with fright. He never thought that the situation, which had originally been in his grasp, would actually collapse in an instant. Bang! The Netherworld chain was torn apart by Shadow Brute's tremendous strength. In a split second, an explosive power was released, and countless prison guards were sent flying in all directions like ants. The Black Shadow Army's attack was going smoothly, but no one noticed the person observing them from behind the scenes. Wang Ling, Bai Yuquan had escaped last time, and now that he had shown up again after much difficulty, Wang Ling absolutely wouldn't miss this rare opportunity to learn. That was right. As a special Great Dao, Wang Ling hadn't mastered Fate Dao. The last time he had learned Divine Dao, it had only been the blink of an eye. But Fate Dao was more special, and Wang Ling needed more time to comprehend it. And the best way to comprehend it was to observe the possessor of Fate Dao up close. Thus, after observing quietly for about 2 minutes, Wang Ling's tightly furrowed brows finally relaxed again. Furthermore, he gave his own assessment of this great Dao of fate. Fortunately, it's not particularly difficult. Shifu, the situation isn't looking good. While Wang Ling was studying, Audiobook was extremely anxious. Seeing that the prison barrier was about to be broken, Audiobook's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Don't panic, Wang Ling comforted him. Then he took a step forward and instantly teleported to the center of the battlefield. The first thing Wang Ling had to do naturally wasn't to kill the enemy. Instead, it was to protect the prison guards. Fortunately, he had learned Fate Dao quickly. Although the prison guards were at a disadvantage, it wasn't an irremediable situation yet. Some of the prison guards had been injured and had fainted on the battlefield. Wang Ling crooked his finger and gathered all the unconscious guards together. At the same time, he cast the great healing spell to instantly heal all their internal and external injuries. In the distance, Bai Yuquan was stupefied when he saw Audiobook suddenly appear. This wasn't his first time dealing with Audiobook, but Bai Yuquan could never have imagined that Audiobook would have such powerful magic power. While he was pondering this, Wang Ling, who was in the air, opened his pure white palm once again. The lines on his palm actually changed in an instant to form a high-level magic array, which fell from the sky on the spot to cover all the combat guards. This was a magic array that no one had ever seen before. The runes on it were so obscure and advanced that even Warden Liang was stunned. He never expected Audua to actually be such a secretive person. "Director Zhua, what is this magic array?" asked Warden Liang. Wang Ling borrowed Audua's voice to answer. "Big Dipper Bloodlock Array." "What the hell? Bloodlock Array?" Warden Liang felt that he had never heard of this array before. But at that moment, one of Shadow Brute's sharp claws suddenly pierced Warden Liang's stomach. A huge, bloody hole appeared in Warden Liang's belly. With blood flowing and his internal organs destroyed, Warden Liang was logically dead. But then came the problem. Warden Liang actually didn't feel any pain at all. Chapter 1059. The Big Dipper Bloodlock Array. It was one of the branches of the Great Bloodlock spell, one of the 30,000 heavenly Dao that Wang Ling had mastered. Combined with the Great Array spell, it was possible to achieve the instantaneous effect of fusing a spell and array. It was this Great Array spell that gave the lines on Wang Ling's palm a soul-like consciousness the instant it fell, and it swiftly outlined the array that Wang Ling wanted to set up. Then, Wang Ling only needed to press his palm down, and the array would be complete. Shadow Brute was one of the incarnations of Fate Dao, and was extremely difficult to deal with. Warden Liang was very strong, but he still wasn't Shadow Brute's match in terms of true fighting strength. But Wang Ling was well aware that as an incarnation of Heavenly Dao, Shadow Brute didn't have a strong endurance. Once it ran out of energy, it would have to go back and replenish itself, like recharging. It was precisely because of this that Wang Ling had instantly grasped its weakness. There were so many people in the prison combative police regiment that it would be too conspicuous to use the clone spell to provide one-on-one support. So Wang Ling decided to use the Great Bloodlock spell to create an opportunity. There was no Heavenly Dao more durable than the Great Bloodlock spell. According to the rules, this Heavenly Dao consumed spirit energy every minute and every second, but Wang Ling's primordial qi could be described as inexhaustible. In the end, there were very few freaks like Wang Ling in this world who could ignore energy consumption. No need to panic, everyone. Director Zhua must have anticipated this situation and set up the array in advance. We're all currently in a state of bloodlock, so we won't feel any pain. Take this opportunity to capture all these intruders. Warden Liang roared, and the prison combative police instantly regained their fiery fighting spirit as their fighting spirit was reignited. In the air, Wang Ling watched Bai Youchuan's figure from afar. This time, he was using Ajua's body, so he didn't need to worry about who would be the scapegoat. In addition, this was also beneficial to Audua himself. While he was in Wang Ling's body, Audua could actually learn a lot of combat skills, such as the angle at which Wang Ling slapped him. Audua was also able to sense Wang Ling's movements up close while he was in Wang Ling's body. Normally, he probably wouldn't even have been able to see Wang Ling's movements clearly. Audua's heart surged with emotion at this immensely rewarding close-range instruction. He had never thought that one day his body would actually be able to release such a powerful Heavenly Dao spell. This Audua is even stronger than in the news reports. Bai Youquan was also shocked by Audua's sudden attack. He had investigated Audua and found that he was a solid golden core cultivator. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to use such a powerful Heavenly Dao spell. But if Audua really was that strong, this attack actually hadn't been a loss. At least they had figured out a potentially powerful enemy. Why not try again? To see how awesome this Audua was, Bai Youquan suddenly felt a burst of excitement in his heart. He came up with a bold idea. Wang Ling operated Audua's body. Although he hadn't been used to the problem of a protruding disc in the beginning, after a period of getting used to it, he had already completely accepted the configuration of this body. Although it was a far cry from his own body, in any case, this was his disciple's body, and it wasn't as bad as he had imagined. King's Eye. Wang Ling raised his fingers and drew a line across his pupil. In a flash, his left eye turned fiery red, and even his pupil split into a three-petaled golden flower. Wang Ling was worried that Audua's body wouldn't be able to withstand the full power of the King's Eye, so he only used half of its power. But even half was already fierce enough. Chi. In the air, Wang Ling turned into a beam of golden light as he charged at Bai Yuquan. A powerful destructive force swept through the air, creating a deep gully in the ground as he moved. Bai Yuquan's eyes twitched at such a powerful destructive force, but it was clear that he wasn't an ordinary person. The moment Wang Ling's body passed through him, Bai Yuquan completed his shadow transformation, and his body became transparent. Was it the power of shadows again? Wang Ling was now 100% certain that this new Black Shadow army was inextricably linked to his unborn younger sister, Wang Nuan. Thinking back to how this group of people had retreated so cleanly in the Palace of Mirrors, not leaving a single trace behind, Wang Ling now recalled that it had actually been at that time that Mother Wang had become pregnant with Wang Nuan. Was there really such a coincidence in this world? Wang Ling was aware of the gravity of this matter. They actually dared to set their sights on Nuan. Aren't these people a little too daring? Wang Ling didn't want to be a siscon, but as an older brother, he had to fulfill his responsibility to protect his little sister. Bai Yuquan, he had to catch this person, and then ferret out the mastermind behind all of this. He remembered that Wang Ming had mentioned to him about the dream, and that there was an imposter who looked exactly like Wang Ling who was managing everything behind the scenes. Not only had President Bai and Devil Gut Fungus Lord been resurrected, even President Bai's son, Bai Yuquan, had been put in an important position by the other party. It was just that at first, Wang Ling hadn't thought that this imposter's real target would actually be Wang Nuan. You can't hurt me. In his shadow state, Bai Yuquan was completely immune to physical attacks. Wang Ling's attack just now had been fierce, but it hadn't hit him. Wang Ling gave Bai Yuquan's arrogance a forward evaluation. Out of 100 secrets, one slip-up. When Bai Yuquan came back to his senses, he was astonished to find that a mark had been placed on his soul at some point in time. The physical attack just now had just been a feint. From the very beginning, Wang Ling had been aiming for his soul. The King's Eye Soul Lock. No matter how far you ran, as long as Wang Ling willed it, he could instantly capture the soul shackler and detain him. Even the old devil and evil sword god back then hadn't received this kind of treatment. Wang Ling was too afraid that the other party would run away just like that. And if he let the other party escape this time, who knew when he would get another chance? Compared with investigating on his own, Wang Ling preferred this kind of confident, suicidal behavior. Bai Yuquan had overestimated his strength. At that moment, he saw this terrifying general administration of 100 schools walking toward him step by step. Kneel. Wang Ling stared at Bai Yuquan without the slightest hint of friendliness on his face, but his words were unquestionable. This wasn't a tone of discussion, but a kind of law of heavenly Tao similar to a decree. Once spoken, the law would be enforced. Bai Yuquan's knees couldn't take the pressure after just saying these two words, and they completely bent and hit the ground heavily. Survey, do you think Wang Ling is a siscon? 1 yes please reply, 1 2 no please reply 2. Chapter 1060. As the saying went, to catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. Now that Wang Ling had taken down Bai Yuquan, the morale of the prison combat police on the battlefield skyrocketed once again. They never expected the legendary director Zhua to actually be someone who hid his abilities. If it hadn't been for him blocking the prison invasion this time, the enemy might have already pierced several holes in their barrier. Not only that, the prison would also have suffered a lot of casualties. If this matter got out, it would definitely have a huge impact on the sense of security of Songhai City's residents. What kind of place was a prison? It was the most heavily defended place in all of Songhai City. If even such a place was breached by criminals, it would undoubtedly be a major blow to people's sense of security. In an era of scientific cultivation, peace had always been the main theme of the world. People had always scoffed at the actions of these thugs, and even resisted and condemned them. Someone once said, "If you think your motherland isn't good, you can build it. If you think the government isn't good, you can take the civil service exam to become an official. If you think citizens have no quality, you can start from today and become a high-quality citizen yourself, and use your actions to influence more people. If you think your compatriots are stupid and ignorant, then work hard to learn from them and try to change them, instead of blindly choosing to complain, curse, flee, or even smash and riot." The motherland you are standing on will be like you. If you are in the light, it will not be in the dark. If you are positive, you will no longer listen to the rumors and slanders of those who have given up on themselves. What you can do, what you can say, there is a bit of heat and a bit of light, just like how fireflies can also give off a bit of light in the dark. From now on, if there is no torch in the world, we will be the only light. But unfortunately, there was a small group of people who didn't understand this truth. They held up bricks and proclaimed that they were powerless civilians, turning what should have been a peaceful appeal into a smashing farce. Violence should be stopped at all times. What was more, this was a group of people with unknown origins who were trying in vain to attack the prison. The king's eye had already locked onto Bai Youquan's soul, and he gritted his teeth in an attempt to make a final struggle. He was the leader of this prison break, and naturally had to think of a way to escape. In the next moment, Bai Youquan curled up on the ground and screamed in pain. Through the king's eye, Wang Ling could clearly see that Bai Youquan was trying to cut open his own soul. The Tao of Fate was a special type of Grand Tao. Those who possessed the Tao of Fate could borrow life from the river of fate to change their fate and achieve the goal of immortality. This was a great Tao that could manipulate parallel spaces. In other words, if Bai Youquan gave up his soul here, then in the parallel space, another Bai Youquan would give up his soul and move into the current Bai Youquan's body. This was the truth of fate. He didn't understand how fate Tao worked at first. But now, everything was different. In reality, Bai Youquan's train of thought was feasible. His soul had been locked by the king's eye. So as long as he cut and replaced it, he would be able to escape the king's eye's soul lock. You want to use fate Tao to transfer a new soul from a parallel dimension? Wang Ling fixed his eyes on Bai Youquan. Bai Youquan's soul trembled at these words, and he felt like his thoughts were being stolen. Having been seen through, Bai Youquan's expression was one of desperation. So what if you see through me? You can't stop me at all. He roared at Wang Ling, then dug a space tunnel with his bare hands and rushed inside like a fleeing mudfish. As Bai Youquan fled, he endured the double pain of having his soul cut and being transferred. If it was just his physical body that was damaged, he could freely move a new body from a parallel space to his own. Those who had mastered Fate Tao could move at least 10,000 parallel spaces and use them for themselves, which was equivalent to having 10,000 lives. When necessary, they could fully unleash Fate Tao and even transfer the strength of everyone in 10,000 spaces to themselves. But that was a solitary act, and was also the ultimate profound meaning of Fate Tao. 10,000 elements returned to one. Once he did this, 10,000 lives would be gathered in one body. If he died, he would really die. Bai Youquan didn't have the guts. Besides, his Fate Tao was a power given to him by someone else, and could only manipulate 100 spaces. If he used 10,000 elements returned to one, and died, all the existences in the parallel spaces would be instantly erased. Bai Youquan would no longer exist in the entire universe. Hurry up a bit more. Enduring the pain of the soul transfer, Bai Youquan allowed his body to float in the space tunnel as the spatial storm tore at it. Compared with the pain of his soul, the torture of his physical body was nothing to Bai Youquan. But very quickly, Bai Youquan realized that something unexpected had happened during the soul transfer. A force seemed to be preventing him from transferring power from the parallel spaces. In the next moment, Bai Youquan realized that a crack had actually appeared at the bottom of the space tunnel, and a golden red eye was staring at him from the center of the crack. Bai Youquan was instantly sucked into the crack. When Bai Youquan came back to his senses, he fell to his knees in front of Wang Ling once again. Using the space crack, Bai Youquan thought that he had already fled tens of thousands of li away. But in the blink of an eye, the king's eye chased after his soul. Bai Youquan was pulled back in front of Wang Ling, distanced to inches. No matter how Bai Youquan escaped, he couldn't shake off Wang Ling's pursuit. "It's you stopped me?" Bai Youquan's soul wasn't replaced by another soul from the parallel space as he had hoped. He stared at Wang Ling with an incredulous expression on his face. You're not Audiobook." Bai Youquan could see that something was wrong, but what could he do? Even if Bai Youquan said it, no one would believe the words of a criminal. Wang Ling pointed a sword at Bai Youquan. His voice echoed in Bai Youquan's mind. I've already devoured your fate Dao. Now you only have one life. You have mastered fate Dao? Bai Yuquan didn't dare believe it. It was as if he had already guessed the identity of the person hiding in Ajua's body, but he didn't dare say it aloud. Is it very difficult? Wang Ling crouched down and stared at Bai Yuquan. He stretched out one hand and pinched Bai Youquan's chin. Tell me, what's your purpose? Survey. Bai Youquan's life or death is up to you. Reply to a digital poll. 1. Write him to death. 2. Keep him alive to continue torturing him. Chapter 1061. Bai Yuquan wanted to struggle, but found that he didn't have the strength to break free from Wang Ling's palm. In fact, under normal circumstances, Wang Ling could choose to forcibly search a person's memory if they didn't want to confess. Unfortunately, he couldn't use this trick on Bai Yuquan. Although Wang Ling had already taken back Fate Dao from the furniture on Bai Yuquan still possessed Fate Dao. Once Fate Dao was used, Bai Youquan's memory space would become chaotic, and the memories of all sorts of Bai Yuquan from different parallel worlds would intertwine like paste, making it difficult to distinguish them. Wang Ling wasn't in a hurry to interrogate him. After all, Ajua was still around, and it was just right for his disciple to handle this sort of miscellaneous task. After using the Great Sealing spell on Bai Yuquan, Wang Ling returned to his original body. Bai Yuquan could now be said to be a shrimpy without a shell, completely useless. What was even more terrifying was that as the leader of the Black Shadow Army, Bai Yuquan would be sent to the special prison cell to meet up with the Mahjong trio. This was also the first time that the Mahjong room had 4 people, so there was no need to go to other cells to make up the numbers. It would take some time to interrogate Bai Yuquan, and this sort of thing couldn't be rushed. At the very least, through Bai Youquan's invasion of the prison this time, Wang Ling had figured out the Black Shadow Army's objective. It was obvious that the other party was after his sister Wang Nuan. The reason why they had their eyes on Zheng Tianqiang and Wu Yuanji was probably because his sister Wang Nuan had given them a special kind of power. Judging from the old Wang family's ancestral genes, Wang Ling felt that Wang Nuan's ability was probably a special kind of Great Dao, which was on the same level as Heavenly Dao, Divine Dao and Fate Dao. Furthermore, this ability was similar to Fate Dao in that it was a gift. It could activate a person's shadow and give them a rapid boost in strength in a short period of time, and at the same time, gain the ability to manipulate shadows. Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang's ability to manipulate shadows was clearly only the most basic. If it was the power of Great Dao, the gift definitely wouldn't be so simple. So this time, Wang Ling was completely shocked. His sister hadn't even been born yet, and she had been in Mother Wang's belly for less than half a month, but she had already learned to cause trouble. Once she was born, she would definitely be a red flame devil. Mo Xiaobei. September 22nd, the 39th day of the summer vacation. Songhai First Prison had been attacked by an unknown force. While inspecting the prison, Ajua had led Warden Liang to successfully defend against the enemy. Not only had the entire prison's combat police been saved, but they had also arrested the leader of the unknown force as well as 100-strong invading gang. Ajua's reputation became even greater than before. Last night, the scene of Wang Ling possessing Ajua's body and using a Heavenly Dao spell had been perfectly recorded by the surveillance cameras. Although no one understood what spell it was, just looking at the cryptic and complex array symbols of the Big Dipper Bloodlock array was enough to stun them. Some of Ajua's peers, in particular, were secretly anti-fans who advocated that Ajua only looked impressive and didn't have any real ability. Because Ajua didn't have reliable battle footage as evidence every time, he basically ran off to claim credit afterward, which made a lot of people feel dissatisfied. How could such a person be the commander? But the fighting strength that Ajua had displayed last night instantly rendered this bunch of haters speechless. Forget that smooth fighting posture. They couldn't even find the array runes that he had set up in the dictionary. Thus, the moment the surveillance footage was released, Ajua's reputation among his peers instantly soared, and he was even given a new nickname: the man who secretly tutored others behind their backs. Wang Ling paid close attention to the interrogation, and would immediately report back to him if there was any progress on Ajua's side. As for Wang Ling, he was also worried about 2 things. Based on the fluctuations coming from Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang, Wang Ling judged that while it was Wang Nuan who had given them their abilities, she hadn't done it on purpose. It had been an unintentional mistake. Wang Nuan had been pregnant for 10 months, and it was likely that there would be a lot of fetal movements during this period. Wang Ling was already very proficient at drawing talisman seals, so he wondered if he should draw one for Nuan as well. That way, he could at least prevent Wang Nuan's energy from leaking out when she was rolling around in her belly. So that morning, while the news was playing about Audiobook, Wang Ling and Father Wang brought up Wang Nuan. Drawing talisman seals required an additional fee, which was roughly 1,000 HNY for talisman paper and special raw materials. This wasn't a lot of money. In fact, as long as Wang Ling used his identity as Ling Zhenren to ask anyone in the group for the money, no one would refuse. But Wang Ling wasn't in the habit of asking outsiders for money. Family matters were internal affairs, and since they were internal affairs, they should be dealt with internally. This was also one of the family rules that Father and Mother Wang had set for Wang Ling since he was young. After listening to the whole story, Father Wang pushed up his glasses and put down the coffee in his hand. Not a bad idea. But you have to earn this money yourself. Let me remind you, you have to earn it with the ability of a high school student at an ordinary cultivation school. That is to say, you can only earn it at the late foundation establishment stage at most. If you exceed this realm, I'll deduct 200 HNY from your allowance next month. Wang Ling had thought that Father Wang would agree right away, but he hadn't expected his biological father to actually ask him to earn it himself, as expected of his biological father. It's not a lot of money, and it's not like I can't give it to you. But Ling, think about it carefully. This is how a big brother feels about his little sister. If the talisman you drew for your little sister is made from your own blood and sweat, I believe that Nuan will be very touched after she's born. Father Wang said earnestly and patted Wang Ling on the shoulder. Think of a way on your own first. If there's really no other way, Dad will still give you the money. These words were impeccable, and in the end, Wang Ling couldn't find an excuse to reach out. Looking at Wang Ling's back as he went upstairs, Father Wang felt a sense of satisfaction in his heart. In order to ensure that old Wang's brother and sister would live in harmony in the future, Father Wang had long since decided to groom Wang Ling into a siscon from the moment Mother Wang had become pregnant with Wang Nuan. At this point in time, it actually wasn't over yet, and so, the second thing that worried Wang Ling came, working. He, a 16-year-old high school student, working. Would anyone want him? Wang Ling was deeply doubtful about this. Wang Ling decided to first calculate what he could do. The Wang family's working rules forbade him from using his innate heavenly Dao ability to earn money. That was to say, the fact that Wang Ling could easily use heavenly Dao spells to earn money was directly overruled by this law. So aside from these whimsical jobs, what else could he do? Become a temporary salesperson in a convenience store? Hand out leaflets on the streets? Or work at a Kaifeng restaurant? Little survey. Where do you think Wang Ling should work? Chapter 1062. In short, Wang Ling's current problem was where to find a job. If he couldn't use heavenly Dao, it would be a little difficult to earn money. Otherwise, he could use the heavenly ear ability to connect to signals from other parallel spaces and casually copy music scores for money, earning tens of thousands of dollars in minutes. But copying music scores wasn't very pleasing, because readers would suspect him of exaggerating the number of words. But while he couldn't use heavenly Dao, Wang Ling's physical fitness was still there. He had considered whether or not he should become someone's sandbag. In any case, he wouldn't be injured even if he got beaten up. The problem was, if that person died from the backlash, he would be done for. When the Shadow Stream killers had attacked number 60 high previously, he could still vividly remember the death of the boss killer, who had suffered the backlash. The grass on the other party's grave was already dozens of meters tall, right? So after some serious thought, Wang Ling started to ask Super Chen, Dopigua and the others for their opinions in the private chat group. Work. Super Chen directly replied in the group. Then Wang Ling, don't even think about serving tea and water in the catering service. Wang Ling. You can't even smile, there's no way you'll get a job there. Also, there's a high chance that you'll get a complaint. I heard that if you get a complaint there, you'll be fined. If you work there with a poker face, you might end up paying them hundreds of yuan a day. You don't say. I know about Wang Ling's situation, and there's a job that suits him quite well. At that moment, Dopey Gua suddenly came up with an idea. What job? Little Peanut was also interested. He can go to a cultivation film and television base as an extra. It's hard money, and they also need student actors. I've introduced a lot of bros from other classes to them, but they don't last long. Why? Because they'll laugh in the middle of acting. It's clearly an extra, and in many cases, they just need to play dead. I think this job suits Wang Ling very well. Just as Dopey Gua finished speaking, Wang Ling directly replied with 2 words. I'm counting on you. Wang Ling had never thought about debuting as an idol, but he felt that he was very suited to be an extra. However, it wasn't easy to take this route. Usually new small-time actors wouldn't have any work to do for a long time. They couldn't even afford to eat. They could only wait by the roadside of the film and television base, waiting for production crews that needed more people to come and recruit them. If they were lucky, they could earn 100 or 200 yuan if they followed the crew for a day. If he was lucky enough to be chosen by the director to say a few lines or something, he could even earn a few thousand a day as a walk-on. If it wasn't enough, it would only happen in a few cases. In the afternoon, Wang Ling invited Dopey Gua to Shanghai Film and Television Base. Film and television bases actually weren't rare nowadays, but Shanghai City's film and television base won in terms of scale. As an international multicultural exchange center, Shanghai City was naturally favored by many film crews as well as famous directors, both at home and abroad. The more space there was, the more places he could use his fists and feet. Nowadays, when cultivators make movies, they no longer need to rely solely on special effects. Many explosive scenes can be created by 2 cultivator actors fighting. Moreover, the key is that they look very realistic, much better than cheap special effects. They even saved on the cost of special effects. Thus, a lot of the movies on the market nowadays were made up of cultivators fighting with special effects. Special effects didn't need to be lavished with money anymore. They just needed to add a little sublimation to the original foundation to make some explosions and fighting scenes look more gorgeous. Wearing his school uniform, Wang Ling waited for a while by the stone tablet with the words Shanghai Film and Television Base on it, and soon saw Master of Dopey waving at him from a distance. Wang Ling didn't know why he was wearing his school uniform for the time being, but since he could make money, it didn't matter. As for Dopey Gua himself, he was also wearing his school uniform. Let's go, I'll take you in. Dopey Gua took out the actor ID that he had prepared in advance, and hung it on his chest. Wang Ling was a little dazed when he saw this decent ID. It's fine. There'll be an assessment later. I have an uncle in the assessment department, so you just have to deal with it. Once you have an actor ID, it'll be easier for you to enter the base. Under normal circumstances, one ID can only bring one person in. It's a kind of referral, Dopey Gua said as he explained the rules of the film and television base to Wang Ling. Wang Ling was about to ask why he had to come in his school uniform, but Dopey Gua just started talking. It's quite a coincidence. That uncle of mine just happened to want to shoot a big online movie with a school theme, and he's still missing 2 people. He wanted me to bring one person in, and I was just about to look for someone else, but Wang Ling, you just happen to want to work. Haha. A school theme? Asked Wang Ling. Yes, this movie is a little amazing. Not only is it a school theme, it's also set in our school. It's also about senior joie. Wait a minute, I'll send the script to our private chat group. Because of the confidentiality agreement, the script couldn't be made public for the time being, so they couldn't send it to their small group. But since Wang Ling had joined them, Dopey Gua thought it was fine to send it to him. He created a new small group exclusively for him and Wang Ling, and sent the script to the 2 of them. The group was called Oscar Best Actor. Dopey Gua explained the script to Wang Ling as he led him to the place to apply for an actor's ID. Wang Ling opened the file that Dopey Gua had sent him, and at the top of the file was a huge line of movie title. Wang Ling immediately took a deep breath, because the movie was called Aujua's Devil Child Descends. Wang Ling heard from Dopigua that it wasn't the film crew who had approached Audiobook about this, but Wang Ling had directly asked Headmaster Chen for permission to shoot the movie. Considering that number 60 High was about to be upgraded to a key city high school, Headmaster Chen felt that they could use this opportunity to do some publicity, so he had agreed. And most importantly, this movie was being directed by a famous director called Feng Yiwei. Of course, what surprised Wang Ling the most wasn't the movie title or the director. It was the content of the movie. When Wang Ling flipped through the file and saw the synopsis of the movie, he was completely dumbfounded. The synopsis of the movie was as follows. 6 years ago, the gate between worlds descended and gave birth to a chaos bead. With the combined efforts of numerous experts in the cultivation world, the chaos bead was refined into a demon bead and an immortal pill. The number 1 sect in the cultivation world, number 60 sects, set up a great array and destroyed the demon bead 3 years later. The head of number 60 sects ordered his eldest disciple, Hirogua, to inject the immortal pill into Audio's body. In the end, due to a freak combination of factors, the immortal pill was replaced, and Audio's, who was supposed to be born from the immortal pill, became the embodiment of the devil path. However, Audio's wasn't swayed by his fate. He upheld the beliefs of number 60 sects and punished evil all the way, but because of the demon bead, he was misunderstood as a devil who committed all sorts of evil, and was repeatedly made a scapegoat for others. Faced with this situation, what should he do? Chapter 1063. Wang Ling suspected that this script might have been written by Super Chen or a relative of Super Chen's family. Even the scapegoat setting had been perfectly incorporated into the plot, which was simply too realistic. An exam was required to issue an actor's certificate, and the examiner would set the exam questions. Hirogua had pulled Wang Ling in through his connections, and the topic had already been decided long ago. Wang Ling was in the second batch of 6 people. As for the content of the performance, it was very simple. They had to act as a person with facial paralysis who couldn't laugh. The examiner would tell them a joke, and they would pass as long as they didn't laugh. Wang Ling felt that this exam question was simply tailor-made for him, and wasn't difficult at all. After the first batch of 6 people entered, the examiner announced the exam questions for the first batch. The content of their performance was the scene of a typhoon passing by. The first person played the role of a tree. He raised his arm and let out a whooshing sound. Then he fell to the ground. The second, third, fourth and fifth people all imitated each other, and the examiner in charge of the assessment was disappointed. It was one thing for the first person to act like this, but in the end, everyone else had to imitate it, which was meaningless. Acting was an art in itself, and diversity was what mattered. Just as the examiner was sighing, the examiner's gazes fell on the last person. This person was a fatty who seemed to weigh more than 160 jin. He stood there motionless like a mountain. Examiner. Sir, what are you acting as? The fatty replied. I'm acting as Shanghai Fortress. Examiner. Pass. Wang Ling and Hirogua. It was finally Wang Ling's turn in the second batch, and he entered the exam hall with the other 5 candidates. He looked at the age of the people next to him. They probably weren't much younger than him, and all had very young faces. It wasn't easy to make a living these days. More than 60% of young people nowadays like to become live streamers, and in order to gain popularity, they would resort to almost anything. Being an actor might be a little hard, but at least it was an industry that relied on ability to make a living. Acting skills could be honed over a long period of time, and if one day you were chosen by a director, you might have a chance to turn things around. It was hard, but it was much better than those who used tricks to attract attention. Next, I'll tell you a joke, but I hope you can keep your composure and not laugh. This is the assessment requirement for your batch. As long as you don't laugh, you will pass, the chief examiner said. Then, examiner, do you know how to laugh? At this moment, a young man who was not afraid of death asked. Smile. Of course not. We're professionals. No matter how funny it is, we won't laugh, unless we can't help it. The examiner glanced at them, and began telling a joke from the book. Once upon a time, there was a temple, and in the temple, there was a foolish monk. Ha 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 ha. The examiner was laughing so hard that he was rocking back and forth, directly falling down from his chair. The other judges couldn't help but frown when they saw this. Isn't this old Chen acting a little too much? Yeah, a little bit. However, his acting skills were indeed good. It was no wonder that he could become a judge. Look, old Chen's twitching is so realistic. His entire body is trembling. I don't think anyone here can tremble as evenly as old Chen, right? I've seen old Chen's joke before. It's not funny. For old Chen to be able to put on such a good performance in front of everyone, it goes to show his superb acting skills. Look, old Chen seems to be foaming at the mouth. He's even foaming at the mouth, how wonderful. And did you see that? He can actually roll his eyes. It's really the details. It really is the details. He even thought about rolling his eyes. But there's still one thing I don't understand. What? Rolling his eyes isn't hard to act, but what's with the red veins in his eyes? How did he do it? Not good. Old Chen isn't acting. He's really laughing. And he's about to pass out from laughing. As soon as the examiner said this, the second batch of examinees finally couldn't hold it in anymore and roared with laughter. The examiner had told them not to laugh when he had given them the exam question, but in the end, they had passed out from laughing on the spot. Was there a funnier joke than this? Thus, Wang Ling was the only expressionless one among the 6 people in the second batch. This really couldn't be blamed on the second batch of examinees, because the other examinees who were still waiting in line outside the exam venue also burst out laughing at this little episode. Some of them laughed so hard that they had to squat down on the ground and hold their stomachs. Wang Ling was the only one whose expression didn't change in the slightest. It could only be said that the legendary poker face really lived up to his reputation. Hirogua was touched by Wang Ling's composure. Sure enough, his decision to recommend Wang Ling was the right one. Thus, 10 minutes later, the examiners gave Wang Ling an actor's certificate from the second batch of examinees, and he was the only one who had obtained an actor's certificate from the second batch of examinees. When the certificate was issued, one of the examiners gave Wang Ling an admiring look. "Student, you're too awesome. Us examiners are about to pass out from laughing, but you're actually not the least bit affected. He's like this at school too." Hirogua put his arm around Wang Ling's shoulder and couldn't help feeling proud. "So this kid is your classmate?" The examiner was amused. He didn't know Wang Ling, but he knew Hirogua. Many of the directors on the set were his uncles. Thus, Hirogua didn't lack pocket money. As long as he didn't have any money, he would come here to act. Sometimes he could earn a few hundred yuan by lying down for a day. This time, it could be said that Hirogua was lucky. It just so happened that a big online movie about number 60 high was going to be shot at this film base, and Hirogua had been introduced to the crew to play a minor role. This supporting role didn't have many lines. It was just 3 sentences in total. But it was already very impressive for a minor role to have 3 sentences, and most importantly, he would be in front of the camera. Hirogua imagined that if he took this opportunity to debut, wouldn't that be wonderful? When that time came, he would be the second Lu Xufan, the second Wu Yuanxi. "Let's go, Wang Ling, I'll take you to the set." Full of excitement, Dopigua finally took Wang Ling to the set of Audiobook's Descent of the Devil's Child. This was Wang Ling's first time on set, and the on-site director was directing the filming in a very enchanting pose. Actor. Lights. Action. Hirogua led Wang Ling around. At a time like this, the biggest taboo was for unrelated personnel to walk around. A lot of new actors would accidentally walk into the camera, and their painstakingly shot would go to waste. But Dopigua was already a wily old fox, and he knew the situation very well. When he brought Wang Ling to the executive director, the latter looked him up and down. "Is this the classmate you were talking about?" "That's right, uncle." Dopigua nodded. "Not bad, he looks pretty good." The executive director nodded. "Then which scene will my classmate be in?" "Let him try in the next scene. There's a fight scene where your classmate just lies on the ground," the executive director said. Chapter 1064. Actually, Wang Ling felt that he was very suited to work in the entertainment industry. After all, It was very common nowadays for young, fresh meats in the entertainment industry to be reprimanded for their poor acting skills because they weren't trained in acting. Happy reaction, poker face plus glare. Angry reaction, poker face plus glare. Frightened reaction, poker face plus glare. Sad reaction, poker face plus glare. This universal formula of poker face and glare became the perfect answer sheet for some fresh meats in the entertainment industry. That was why Wang Ling felt that he could do it too. But for the time being, Wang Ling wouldn't be able to experience this feeling of being the lead actor. He was already very satisfied that he could borrow Dopey Guo's fame to play a small role. Before filming the second scene, the executive director found Wang Ling, "Classmate Wang, I'll tell you about the second scene. The second scene is a fight scene. I don't know where you're going to lie." Wang Ling. "It's like this. The price is different depending on where you lie." The executive director opened a map of the scene and said patiently to Wang Ling, "This green zone is basically safer. The actor's movements and spells during the fight have all been calculated, so the green zone won't be affected. Lying in the green zone for a day is 80 to 100 yuan. The yellow zone is moderately dangerous, and the reward for lying there for a day is 100 to 500 yuan. During the fight scene, there may be a lot of energy shock waves in the air. Because of the precise calculation, there usually won't be any danger. But it needs to be said that once you lie down, you can't move carelessly. No matter how loud the commotion or the explosion sounds, you absolutely can't move because you're afraid, because it could cause trouble. Actors often lie down in the yellow zone for the sake of money, but in the end overestimate their psychological endurance and get up halfway through, only to have their legs and feet blown off. As long as you don't move in this zone, there won't be any major problems. The reward for the red zone is 800 to 1,000 yuan a day. How much you can earn depends on the actor's performance. The red zone is where the attacks are concentrated, and the actors lying there need to be extremely strong psychological and professional qualities. Because they'll be covered by spells, they might be slightly burned while lying down. But this injury is manageable. We have a special freezing cream that will be applied to the burned area as soon as the scene is over, so there won't be any scars. But the prerequisite is that you have to endure the pain, the executive director said. In addition, we have also set up a green golden light shield for the corpses in the red area. The moment the spell is bombarded, the green golden light shield will automatically activate, so it won't cause any life-threatening danger. But if you move recklessly, you might be reduced to a pile of ashes in an instant. Wang Ling was puzzled. Green? It's convenient to cut out the picture later. When it comes to the fight scene, we can remove all the green and golden light in one go, Dopey Guo explained. Wang Ling. The executive director nodded. In short, the most important thing to pay attention to in these three areas is this. Do not move around. As long as he did not move, his life would not be in danger. Student Wang, which one do you choose? Wang Ling was expressionless. Red. His body had long since become a saint of the mortal body. Great Dao-level spells could not even touch him, let alone a few mere explosions. The executive director was so moved that he quickly shouted excitedly, "Chief Director! Finally, someone is willing to go to the red zone." Wang Ling. After hearing this decision, Dopey Guo was nervous. Wang Ling, you're going too far. Do you want to choose again now? The red zone is really dangerous. It's fine. Wang Ling's expression was as calm as an ancient well. Dopey Guo had heard before that Wang Ling seemed to be short of money to buy a present for his sister. It was just that even Dopey Guo himself had never thought that Wang Ling would actually go to this extent for his sister. Roughly 20 minutes later, Wang Ling lay in the designated position in the red zone with about 20 green and golden light talismans stuck to his back. That was to say, he had to withstand almost 20 attacks. When an ordinary actor saw the shock waves hit their face, their expressions couldn't help but tremble. What more a mere high school student? Hence, a lot of people were skeptical about Wang Ling's decision to take on this job. At such a young age, newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. He's fine, but he insists on throwing his life away, sigh. Several old extras on the set discussed this behind his back. They felt that Wang Ling was courting death. Several of them were veterans who had been acting for more than 10 years, and it was very hard for them to keep their facial expressions still in the face of the successive shock waves. And this time, Wang Ling was playing an extra who died with his eyes open. That was to say, Wang Ling had to keep his eyes open the entire time. Was this really possible? Extras in position. Actors in position. Following the executive director's orders, all the extras laid down in their predetermined positions. Then the actor appeared. He was a baby-faced actor called Tong Ling. In fact, he was already very old, but because of special maintenance methods and a special internal scripture, he maintained his physical condition at the level of a child, and looked like he was only 11 or 12 years old. This scene was about 12-year-old Audjua being ignored and despised after absorbing the devil bead. In the end, he couldn't control the demonic chi in his rage and exploded. There were a lot of explosions in the middle of the scene, and Wang Ling was playing the role of a villager who died after being caught up in the explosions. In fact, Audjua hadn't killed this villager. Instead, it was the demonic path who had framed him and wanted him to be spurned by the world. Brother Tong, I'll leave this scene to you. The executive director followed Tong Ling. Tong Ling put down his cigar and changed into his costume with the help of his assistant. At the same time, he turned his gaze to the area on the set. This scene had been delayed for a long time because of the explosion scene, and the fact that no extras were willing to take on the role in the Red Corpse area. Of course, the crew had thought of using dummies, but the overall effect was too fake, and it was easy to tell at a glance even after post-production. At that moment, there was actually a high school student lying in the Red Corpse area, which suddenly made Tong Ling feel a little interested. Did this kid do it voluntarily or did you force him? Of course he did it voluntarily. The executive director wiped his sweat. Tong Ling chuckled. Doesn't he know that there are going to be 20 explosions in that area? Does he really have the ability to stay still? Did he buy insurance? I don't care if he gets hurt. We've already signed an agreement with him, and we also promised that as long as he doesn't move, his life won't be in danger. Tong Ling. I hope so. A newborn calf isn't afraid of a tiger. If you want to make some quick money, you sneak onto a film set? How could it be that easy to be an actor? Even if you were an extra, there was a certain level of skill involved. Thinking this, Tong Ling smiled slightly and suddenly wanted to tease Wang Ling. Chapter 1065. No job was easy, but not everyone made a living as an actor. Some people only relied on their hobbies to support themselves for decades, but in the end, they still ended up as an unknown minor character. In the workplace, the formula of hard work and luck would never change. Thus, when Tong Ling saw Wang Ling lying on the ground, he inexplicably wanted to teach this junior a lesson so that he would better understand the cruelty of reality. Of course, the most important thing was that Tong Ling realized that she was actually jealous of Wang Ling's face, which inexplicably displeased her. The truth was that if Tong Ling knew that Wang Ling's face had already been low-key, as an actor he would probably spit out blood on the spot. Tong Ling was playing the role of a demonized Audjua. Furthermore, the shape of Tong Ling's face was very similar to Audjua's, and she only needed to use exquisite makeup skills to make her look almost identical to Audjua's. As for the actor playing Audjua himself, he was a special actor whom the crew had found somewhere. Although Wang Ling was lying on the ground, his king's eye was still there, so even if he wasn't in his line of sight, he would still be able to see Wang Ling. The surrounding environment could also be clearly displayed in his mind in the form of a holographic image. The actor who played Audjua was called Jua Fan, and he really resembled Audjua too much. Furthermore, he definitely hadn't deliberately gone through plastic surgery to look like Audjua, but was born very much like him. In number 60 High School History Museum, there was a wall of famous alumni, on which hung Audjua's photo. It had been taken when Audjua had graduated, and he still looked very young and inexperienced. And the actor the crew had found was the young and inexperienced Audjua from back then. Fortunately, their auras were completely different, so it wasn't hard for Wang Ling to tell them apart. This scene was dragged out for a long time, because they couldn't find a walk-on actor who was willing to risk his life. The special actor Jua Fan had already finished filming the scene before the demonization. Now he finally found a chance to redo the magic transformation. Brother Tong, please keep this black pill in your mouth during the fight. A young man from the prop team presented a pill before the auction started. This kind of meatball was also known as the film and television special effect meatball, which was specially produced for filming movies. However, because the taste was not very good, many actors had lingering fears about this kind of meatball. However, the effects of the shooting were outstanding. Just like this black pill, as long as it was placed in the mouth, its body would begin to emit surging black gas. Even its pupils would change color, making it look as terrifying as a demon. So troublesome? Can't we use special effects? Sorry to trouble you, Brother Tong. If we use the black ball, it will be more realistic than the special effects. If you don't like the ball, I can't explain it to the director. The prop team guy was also very helpless. The shoot was about to start, and Tong Ling didn't have time to waste with the prop team. He frowned, but still accepted the meatball and put it in his mouth. In the blink of an eye, Tong Ling's body underwent a huge change along with the black special effect pill. His entire body began to be surrounded by black gas, and even his hair and nails grew longer. The muscles all over his body swelled up, and he actually turned into a burly man. This wasn't the first time Tong Ling had taken a special effect pill, but the changes brought about by this special effect pill still shocked Tong Ling. Brother Tong, don't worry. This medicine will lose its effect in 3 days. When the time comes, you will be able to return to your original state. The young man from the prop team smiled. Bastard. 3 days. Tong Ling roared, and black smoke billowed out of his mouth like an overwhelming black dragon as it surged toward the prop team guy. Tong Ling wanted to cry but had no tears to shed at this scene. His image. This time, it was really ruined. It was really too difficult for him. Action. At the director's command, Tong Ling began his performance in his demonized state. This was a performance without any lines. It was almost all a roar, and then a concentrated bombardment in all directions. This was where Tong Ling's usefulness was reflected. The truth was that he was a genuine martial arts actor, and almost all the scenes he received were related to martial arts. Furthermore, Tong Ling's realm was very high, and he was at the nascent soul stage. A nascent soul cultivator could cast even more spells. Tong Ling had traveled extensively over the years, and in order to meet the requirements of all the major production crews, he had learned a lot of different spells and understood a lot of things, which was why he was deeply loved by the production crews in the entertainment circle. According to the script, Tong Ling closed his eyes and floated in the air. After making a few Chinibu gestures, he started to prepare the spell in his hands. Wang Ling lay motionless on the ground. But very quickly, his body sensed something strange. For some reason his eyelids, which hadn't twitched in a long time, actually twitched at that moment. Eyelid warning? Could it be that something dangerous was about to happen? Wang Ling sensed something strange, but he didn't show it. He was now playing a dead man who had died with grievances. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Tong Ling in the air, who was surging with demonic qi, without the slightest ripple of emotion on his face. Not bad. Where did you find this cameo? He's very promising. Seeing this scene, the director couldn't help performing. He's my nephew's classmate. The director laughed. So it was that kid Hirogua who found him? He's finally found someone reliable. The people he introduced before weren't good, and kept moving around. In the end, he's just a young man who hasn't seen much of the world, and is too impetuous. Director, you're right. This kid isn't bad. The director showed his fondness for Wang Ling again. And this kid's looks aren't bad. Why do I feel like I like him more and more the more I look at him? Everyone. Is he usually like this at school? At that moment, the director turned to look at Hirogua. Yes, director. He's sitting next to me. When my uncle told me that he wanted to find an actor to play a dead man, to be honest, he was the first person I thought of. There's no one more suitable than him to play a dead man. For some reason, there was a strong sense of pride in Dopigua's tone when he said this. Wang Ling. Dozens of seconds later, Tong Ling's first attack was finally launched. This was a lethal spell. Purple Flame Beam Cannon. The name sounded awesome, and the momentum it produced was also very astonishing. The light wave blasted down like a railgun, creating a huge explosion on the ground. Wherever it passed, gravel flew and thick smoke rose. Tong Ling had wanted to tease Wang Ling before the start of the performance. He deliberately controlled the angle of the beam, so that some of the gravel and dirt that had been blasted away would fall on Wang Ling's body. Watching helplessly as he dirted this youngster actually gave Tong Ling a sense of joy. But very quickly, Tong Ling realized that something wasn't right with the situation. He didn't know what was wrong. He couldn't stop his purple flame beam cannon. Chapter 1066. For some reason, the moment Tong Ling wanted to tease Wang Ling, he felt as if his body was being firmly controlled by an external force. An evil force was manipulating his body, constantly extracting his spirit energy, and releasing light waves in all directions. If this went on, Tong Ling felt like he was going to be squeezed dry. The purple flame beam cannon swept the ground, sending dirt flying. The more the chief director stared at the image, the more he felt that something wasn't right. Crack! The director called for a cut. It didn't work. In the air, Mr. Tong Ling still looked like he had forgotten himself, and was letting loose. Who can tell me what's going on? Mr. Tong Ling seems to be out of control. Out of control? Why was he out of control? The indiscriminate attack, which was completely out of the script, was already a threat to several minor actors in the green safety zone. Don't shoot at me. Mr. Tong Ling. Wake up. Ah, my blazing biceps. Someone had been hit by the purple flame beam cannon, and let out a painful scream. For a moment, the scene descended into chaos. No one had expected something like this to happen. Wang Ling. Hirogwa thought of Wang Ling. He took out his spirit sword and wanted to rush in to save him. On the side, the executive director pulled him back. Nephew Big. It's dangerous. Uncle. Quick, think of a way to save him. Hirogwa was anxious. He was the one who had introduced Wang Ling to this job. Furthermore, Wang Ling was his most adorable deskmate. If Wang Ling died just like this, who else could he find to copy homework with such clear handwriting in the future? Amid the smoke, Wang Ling slowly opened his eyes. It seemed that what his eyelid had warned him about was related to Tong Ling losing control. Hearing the commotion around him, Wang Ling could already confirm that Tong Ling had lost control. Furthermore, he sensed a very familiar aura from Tong Ling. It was the same aura that he had sensed from Wu Yuanji and that Father Zheng. Wang Ling guessed that this Mr. Tong had also eaten frozen dumplings. The box of frozen dumplings that Mother Wang had returned back then had contained 12 packets. That was to say, those frozen dumplings which had been given the power of shadow might have been bought by 12 people from the discount returned area by chance, and after eating them, they had gained the power of shadow. Wang Ling lay motionless on the ground as he stared at Tong Ling, who had lost control of himself. He could clearly sense the trajectory of the purple flame beam cannon, and predict what would happen in the next 300 seconds. He was certain that Tong Ling would not hurt him. At this stage, it was best to not make a move, because the director had said that if they acted recklessly, the money would be deducted. It hadn't been easy for him to get such an easy job, and he didn't want to waste it. Moreover, he had a premonition that Tong Ling's spiritual power had already reached a state of depletion. As long as the spiritual power in his body was used up, the attack would completely stop. Therefore, about 3 minutes later, the set returned to peace. Wang Ling picked himself up from the dirt and shook off the dust on his body. In the distance, Hirogwa threw himself at him with a face full of snot and tears. F***K. Great Wang Ling. You're not dead. If you die, who will copy my homework for me in the future? The corner of Wang Ling's mouth twitched in disdain. This guy only had this much to offer. Wang Ling walked out of the safe zone unscathed, which shocked the entire audience. He had clearly been in the most dangerous red zone, which was the area most heavily impacted, but in the end, he had still been able to lie on the ground like a corpse in the face of danger. Such professionalism instantly made the veteran actors on the set lower their heads in shame. This kind of operation, they couldn't learn. Classmate Wang, you're really amazing. All the directors on the set were stupefied on the spot. Staring at Wang Ling, whose face was covered in dirt, they didn't know what to say for a moment. Wang Ling was silent as he stared at the director with a hopeful look in his eyes. The director couldn't resist this kind of professional look. Classmate Wang, I know what you mean. Don't worry. If I make a show in the future, I'll definitely look for you. Your professionalism is worthy of all of us to learn from. But classmate Wang, when it's time to run, you still have to run. You know, what if you hurt yourself? Wang Ling sighed slightly at the director's words. Of course, he wasn't talking about whether Wang Ling was professional or not. The reason why he was still lying there in the midst of the chaos was naturally because of his salary. After being Wang Ling's deskmate for more than half a year, Wang Ling didn't like to talk much, but after half a year of interaction, they still had a tacit understanding. Hirogwa understood the meaning behind this. Uncle, that's not what my classmate means. Then what? He wants you to pay your salary. Thus, Wang Ling happily took 1,200 HNY home that day. 1,000 HNY was Wang Ling's salary, and the extra 200 HNY was the director's mental consolation money. As for the TV series Birth of Audio's Devil Child, they couldn't continue shooting it for the time being. There was a problem on the set, and Tong Ling had gone out of control, causing damage to the environment of the film and television base. This incident very quickly became a hot topic on Weibo, and a lot of people had different opinions as to why Tong Ling had gone out of control. The truth was that after Tong Ling had released all his spirit energy, Wang Ling had used his Great Seal spell to seal off the power of shadow in his body. Like Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang, Tong Ling had unknowingly obtained this power, and naturally didn't know how to properly use Shadow Dao. Without being able to display its power, Wang Ling couldn't imitate Fate Dao like he could. And it was precisely because of today's incident that his unborn little sister had thoroughly attracted Wang Ling's attention. Making the seal was one thing, and Wang Ling now had enough funds. Of course, another very important thing was to find the remaining 9 friends who had accidentally eaten the frozen dumplings. Wang Ling was determined to do this. As an older brother, it was normal for him to clean up his little sister's mess. But there were so many people in Huaxiao Nation that it would be really difficult to find friends who had eaten the 9 packages of frozen dumplings. There was no other way, and Wang Ling could only seek help from the Heavenly Dao once again. The Heavenly Dao equivalence array. After Wang Ling drew the familiar array diagram in the room, Loopy Toad came over with an excited look on its face. It hadn't seen the Heavenly Dao in a while, and it missed it very much. When Wang Ling summoned the Heavenly Dao Little Golden Man, he and Loopy Toad were utterly shocked by the scene in front of them. The summoned Heavenly Dao Little Golden Man was lying on the ground, its stomach rumbling, and it looked like it was about to starve to death. Had he already squeezed the Heavenly Dao so hard that it couldn't even afford to eat? Wang Ling was suspicious. Was he that savage? Chapter 1067. Ever since Wang Ling had looked for the Heavenly Dao to exchange for crispy noodle snacks, the Heavenly Dao Little Golden Men had been having a hard time. The key was that they couldn't refuse Wang Ling's crispy noodle snacks at all. Even expired crispy noodle snacks had a kind of magical power that the Heavenly Dao Little Golden Men couldn't extricate themselves from. As for why this poor little golden man was lying starving in front of Wang Ling, it was purely because the expired crispy noodle snacks he had exchanged with Wang Ling had been snatched away by his companions, and he had already been forced to develop the habit of eating expired crispy noodle snacks under Wang Ling's law of unequal exchange over the years. He would feel uncomfortable all over if he didn't eat them for a day. In the last few days, Wang Ling hadn't looked for him to exchange crispy noodle snacks, and the little golden man couldn't eat anything else, preferring to go hungry. Loopy Toad never thought that a Heavenly Dao Little Golden Man would actually be so addicted to crispy noodle snacks that he couldn't extricate himself from. This showed the magical power of Little Masterling's crispy noodle snacks. It couldn't be helped. Apart from the 6 main Heavenly Dao, including Strength Heavenly Dao, the rest of the Little Golden Men worked under them. Furthermore, they worked overtime on a 996 basis, and when they got off, they went to the ICU. The Little Golden Men had different ways of replenishing themselves. Some Little Golden Men sucked out the divine power of evildoers, which was why there were so many vegetative people around the world who never woke up. Many of these people looked like good people, but they had all made mistakes when they were young, which the heavenly Tao little golden men had noticed. Some little golden men replenished themselves by devouring time, which was why people always felt that time flew by. There were times when you were just looking at your phone to pass the time. In the end, a few hours would be gone. The truth was that the heavenly Tao little golden men played a role in this. People who didn't cherish life, didn't write well, didn't work hard or study hard would appear quietly and steal their time. Of course, there were also little golden men who liked to devour souls, the souls of evildoers. These people had committed murder in their lives, and naturally couldn't enter the cycle of reincarnation after death. Since they couldn't go through reincarnation, they could only become food for the heavenly Tao. The principle of equivalent exchange was an unchanging law of heavenly Tao, except for whitelist users. Since they had done evil when they were young, they would sooner or later suffer retribution from heaven. If you didn't want heaven to know, don't do it. There were many other examples, but the heavenly Tao little golden men usually replenished their energy by devouring power, time, space, soul, spirit, and even life and death. They constantly absorbed these powers to strengthen themselves. Finally, in the year-end election every year, they would become the 6 leaders of heavenly Tao, who symbolized the limits of heavenly Tao's power, which was the current heavenly Tao governing committee. Strength heavenly Tao, time heavenly Tao, space heavenly Tao, soul heavenly Tao, life and death heavenly Tao, mind heavenly Tao. The current 6 leaders of the heavenly Tao governing committee had risen through this method. Of course, the laws of the heavenly Tao were ever-changing. Although the 6 leaders held high positions, it was not impossible for them to be expelled from the 6 great heavenly Tao. In the past, there had been periods when other heavenly Taos had ascended to the position of the 6 leaders, such as the heavenly Tao of nothingness, the heavenly Tao of reality, the heavenly Tao of greed, and so on. However, the mechanism of the heavenly Tao governing committee had always been survival of the fittest. Currently, the 6 members of the heavenly Tao governing committee were the most stable 6. They had been in high positions for many years and had not been replaced for 16 years. But the 6 great heavenly Tao were panicking now, because one day 16 years ago, Wang Ling was born. They were very worried that in the future, a heavenly Tao called Snack Heavenly Tao would occupy the position of their leader. A heavenly Tao who relied on eating crispy noodle snacks to ascend to the position. This was absolutely unprecedented in the history of the heavenly Tao. Although it seemed a little difficult to rely on this method to ascend to the position of the 6 leaders, there was one thing that made the heavenly Tao governing committee very uneasy. When Wang Ling was very young, he had used the great replication spell to throw crispy noodle snacks into space. Now there was a crispy noodle galaxy in the sky. This galaxy had already been jointly sealed by the 6 great heavenly Tao. If Wang Ling discovered it one day and unsealed it again, the 6 of them might not be able to sit still. Although the possibility of Snack Heavenly Tao ascending to the position was very small, considering that their opponent was Wang Ling, the 6 great heavenly Tao didn't dare let their guard down. Thus, they agreed to all of Wang Ling's seemingly unreasonable exchange requests, satisfying this youngster. To be honest, when Wang Ling saw the hungry little golden man collapse in front of him, his heart had been moved. From the very beginning, this little golden man in front of him had been the person in charge of the equivalent exchange with Wang Ling from the heavenly Tao. Wang Ling hadn't expected that under his subtle influence, even this little golden man would fall in love with crispy noodle snacks. Not bad, this time, Wang Ling wasn't stingy. He generously took out a collector's edition crispy noodle snack from his inventory and carefully tore open the packaging. Then he took out the special pepper noodles inside and finally poured them in. A familiar aroma quickly wafted out. The little golden man on the ground couldn't help twitching, and he actually came back to life on the spot, salivating and full of blood. Woof! The little golden man pounced on him with his butt in the air. What was even worse was that Wang Ling actually opened his mouth to speak, and his tone was extremely gentle. Don't rush, eat slowly. No one will fight you for it. As the little golden man ate the collector's edition crispy noodle snack, he bawled. He was as obedient as a puppy as he accepted Wang Ling's touch as he ate. Loopy toad. A few minutes later, the little golden man, who had finished eating the crispy noodle snack, finally calmed down. Realizing his gaffe, the little golden man got up from Wang Ling's arms with a flushed face. He sorted out his emotions and then took a deep breath. Well, what's the matter? Loopy Toad didn't know if it was seeing things, but it suddenly felt like the little golden man's face was a little red. Heavenly Dao little golden men were expressionless and had no facial features. Furthermore, their bodies gave off a faint golden light of Heavenly Dao, and they looked like natural humanoid works of art made of 999 pure gold. But now Loopy Toad actually saw a blush on the little golden man's face. Was there something wrong with this golden man's mind? Although little Master Ling was indeed very likable, you were a freaking Heavenly Dao. I want to track down the whereabouts of a few people. Wang Ling gazed at the Heavenly Dao with a gentle gaze that Loopy Toad couldn't understand. A person who loved crispy noodle snacks. Could little Master Ling like him so much, even if it was a Heavenly Dao little golden man? No way. It also wanted to eat it. It would eat it tomorrow, as Wang Ling's #1 battle pet. The moment it saw Wang Ling and the Heavenly Dao exchange gazes, Loopy Toad actually felt like it had fallen out of favor. It absolutely wouldn't let that happen. Chapter 1068. After learning of Wang Ling's request, the little golden man immediately applied to the Heavenly Dao Governing Committee to request Space Heavenly Dao and Time Heavenly Dao, 2 of the 6 main Heavenly Dao, to search the entire planet for the remaining 9 people who had eaten the frozen dumplings. Only the 2 main Heavenly Dao, Space Heavenly Dao and Time Heavenly Dao, could complete the search at a specific time and place. Wang Ling was the only one who could command the main Heavenly Dao. Otherwise, even Gu Xuanji, the keeper of order who maintained the peace of the universe, would have to go through the approval process. After waiting for a few minutes, the search was over. The little golden man opened his hand, and a golden scroll appeared in his hand. The 9 people's names, contact information, and home addresses were all clearly written on the golden scroll. Furthermore, it was written in very neat Heavenly Dao script, which normal people wouldn't be able to understand at all. But Wang Ling was naturally self-taught when it came to the Heavenly Dao script, and didn't need to learn it. It was as if this language had taken root in his head as his mother tongue, and had been constantly updating its vocabulary since birth. By the time Wang Ling was 10, he had mastered all the Heavenly Dao script. Gazing at the 9 names, Wang Ling heaved a long sigh of relief. These 9 people were all in Songhai City, and the frozen dumplings which had been contaminated with the aura of the Great Dao by Shadow Dao hadn't spread. Next, he would have to seal these 9 people one by one. Wang Ling looked at the first name, Li Daiwei. According to the information, this was an ordinary middle-aged man with a low realm at the foundation establishment stage. But his profession was a little scary. He was an undertaker who mainly put on makeup for the dead, and on the list he was the only one who lived in the suburbs. And it just so happened that this person lived pretty close to the Wang family's small villa. Wang Ling decided to start with this person first. Of course, to prevent any unexpected situations, Wang Ling also sent the names of the other people to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, and asked him to send a small team to keep an eye on them. Logically speaking, Wang Ling thought that as long as he sealed them, he would be safe. But what happened next was far beyond Wang Ling's expectations. The power that his unborn little sister wielded was far beyond what Wang Ling could imagine. About 800 li east of the Wang clan's small villa was a graveyard called the Pines and Cranes Garden. Those who could be buried in this cemetery were basically the children of rich and powerful families. Nowadays, the price of graves was very high, and it was even comparable to the price of a house. A square meter in a high-class graveyard could cost hundreds of thousands. So much so that people couldn't even afford to die. The profession of embalmer was a job that made many people pale at the mention of it. Many embalmers had experienced this when they went on blind dates. They were having a good time, but as soon as they started talking about work, the target would try to run away. Interacting with the dead was seen as a taboo in the eyes of many people. This was partly due to the customs and culture of his hometown, but in fact it was more superstition. Any profession should be respected. Since there was a job as an embalmer, it meant that there was a need for it in society. Since it was a job that society needed, Why would they be afraid of it? Wang Ling used the body teleportation spell to appear at the entrance of the park, followed by Dog 2. Dog 2 had nothing to do at home, so it asked to come out with Wang Ling for some fresh air. In front of the main entrance, Wang Ling got a good look at the entire park. The cemetery was covered in green and gave off a refreshing floral fragrance. All kinds of flower trees were planted neatly around it. Tower cypress, dragon cypress, 7 lilies, chrysanthemum, dragon claw flowers. The planting of these flowers and trees was also very particular. They symbolized mourning and dignity. They could intimidate the souls of the deceased who had died in an accident. Standing at the entrance, Wang Ling could see in the distance that at the end of the stone steps leading up was a huge 6-legged incense burner. The bottom of the burner glowed faintly, and the smoke that drifted out of it was as white as snow, so holy that it seemed like it could refract light. This was the cemetery's incense burner. In order to promote the concept of environmental protection, people who had come to pay their respects to their loved ones could place the paper money they had prepared in the opening at the bottom of the incense burner. After that, the incense burner would break down the paper money into environmentally friendly smoke that could be quickly absorbed by the surrounding trees. This smoke was very visual. It was like a dragon connecting the sky, so the cyclone of smoke could be seen from a distance. It was like a track that could connect to heaven and other places, and was entrusted with people's longing for the deceased. Wang Ling cast the invisibility spell and walked over with Loopy Toad, who looked around curiously. Because of their powerful eyes, one man and one dog could see a lot of spirits floating in the graveyard on the side as they walked along the main path. These spirits had all been buried recently, and were waiting to ascend to heaven and return to Heavenly Tao. The Heavenly Tao Governing Committee had to go through some procedures, so these spirits could only wait. Wang Ling had cast the Great Invisibility spell, and ordinary people couldn't see him, but these spirits could. The world after death was different from a normal person's perspective. Although these spirits couldn't see Wang Ling and Loopy Toad's faces clearly, they could sense their existence and see their general outlines. Mom, it looks like someone's coming. Judging from their shape, it should be a person and a dog. Don't go, it's dangerous. They don't look like tombstones, so they should be wandering ghosts. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. As it turned out, these spirits thought they were spirits as well. Mom, but they don't look like bad people. Can I go play with the dog? No, daughter, we're going to ascend to heaven soon. We can't let anything happen. Our cemetery hasn't been peaceful recently. A very strong malicious ghost has come, and I'm afraid these 2 wandering ghosts will attract its attention very soon. The woman said timidly. She took her daughter's hand and hid behind her tombstone. The tombstone had a barrier seal, and as long as they hid nearby, it would be a safe zone, and normal malicious ghosts wouldn't be able to get close at all. Wang Ling had wanted to ignore the mother and daughter and walk straight past them, but when he heard that the cemetery wasn't peaceful, his curiosity was suddenly piqued. Loopy Toad understood what its master meant, and directly led the way through the cemetery to the mother and daughter's tombstones. Mom, did they see us? The little girl was a little nervous. Of course we saw them, and we heard everything you said. Loopy Toad looked at the little girl and said, Little girl, what happened in the cemetery recently? If you know, please tell me. Otherwise, when you ascend to heaven, I'll have the Heavenly Tao Governing Committee give you homework. Don't think that just because you've become a spirit, you don't have to write anymore. Hearing this, the little girl burst into tears. Wang Ling. Chapter 1069. What Loopy Toad said wasn't a threat but the truth. It had already been said countless times that the Heavenly Tao emphasized the principle of equivalence. In the mortal world, those who didn't do their homework properly didn't do it, or even copied it would automatically enter a remedial room after they ascended to heaven to complete their unfinished homework. They had to complete all the homework they had missed out on during their 9 years of compulsory education before they could enter the Heavenly Tao cycle of reincarnation. Although the little girl wasn't very old, she looked like she was already in the 4th grade of primary school. Nowadays, there was a lot of homework for primary school students, but Loopy Toad didn't know whether the girl had finished it or not. In any case, if she hadn't, there was a high chance that she would still have to make it up after she ascended to heaven. Even as a spirit, she had to be a cultured spirit. Only in this way could she enter the cycle of reincarnation and become a human again. If she was poor in the field of knowledge, there were other Tao of reincarnation waiting for her. The Beast Tao, the Hungry Ghost Tao, and so on. Of course, the Heavenly Tao's principle of equivalence exchange was different. If some people completed their homework but indulged themselves too much in the mortal world, they would also have to complete an abstinence exchange in the Heavenly Tao. This was even crueler than making up for homework, because they just needed to live in a closed room for a few years. Furthermore, there was no Wi-Fi, no smartphone. They could only reflect on their mistakes in front of the wall. Seeing that it had scared the little girl into crying, Loopy Toad felt a little embarrassed. Little girl, Big Brother lied to you. You lied again. You're clearly a dog. She crouched down to comfort her daughter. After her crying gradually subsided, she got up and bowed to Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. Exalted immortals, may I know what you want to ask? What's the deal with the malicious ghost you mentioned earlier? Loopy Toad asked bluntly. It's like this: about 4 days ago, a black spirit suddenly appeared in the cemetery. It wandered around the area and caught a lot of spirits who had escaped from the tombstones. What happened to those spirits? They were all swallowed by this black spirit. Hearing this, Wang Ling and Loopy Toad were silent. A black spirit seemed to fit the criteria for Shadow Tao very well. Perhaps it was that Undertaker's escaped shadow? After being bestowed with the power of the Shadow Tao, the human shadow seemed to possess a soul, and it was bestowed with a will similar to the owner's. It would help the owner complete some subconscious tasks. Embalmers put makeup on the dead, and they might have some inappropriate evil thoughts towards the spirits of the dead. In the cultivation world, graveyard workers had to go through strict screening before they could be employed. This was because there were some evil Tao magical arts that used the absorption of spiritual bodies to strengthen one's cultivation. And gravediggers had such favorable conditions to cast such evil spells. There was such a case 100 years ago. There was a person who used a curse spell to send Ozzel in the bullet screen of all the major videos. And those who watched the bullet screen would often tease Wei's mass grave. In fact, there were many Wei with the word Wei in their names who died after seeing the cursed grenade. Their spirit bodies were absorbed by the person who cast the curse. When the police finally found the culprit, they discovered that the culprit was a staff member of the cemetery. After working in such an environment for a long time, there were bound to be times when one's mind would become restless and go berserk. Once one's mind was unguarded, evil thoughts would seize the opportunity to enter. Coupled with the halo of professional discrimination that came with being a graveyard worker, this kind of demonic thought grew stronger and stronger. Thank you. Wang Ling thanked the mother and daughter, then snapped his fingers at the sky. In a flash, the golden light of Heavenly Tao's guidance fell on the heads of the mother and daughter. Daughter, Heavenly Tao has come to guide us. Mom, can we be reincarnated? Startled by the golden light, the mother and daughter instantly hugged each other and cried tears of joy. These days, they had been scared after seeing the black spirit bodies, and didn't know when the Heavenly Tao would take them away. They never thought that this little brother whose face they couldn't see clearly would actually help them. With just a snap of his fingers, he could actually alarm the Heavenly Tao to help them. Was this little brother the Heavenly Tao itself that had descended into the mortal world? Overwhelmed by the favor, the woman hurriedly knelt down in front of Wang Ling with her daughter. A little embarrassed, Wang Ling helped them up, and finally watched as the mother and daughter were sent into reincarnation under the guidance of the Heavenly Tao golden light. Wang Ling pinched his fingers together and did some calculations. After reincarnating, the mother and daughter would become sisters who would live in a wealthy family and not have to worry about food and clothing. Of course, the reason why Wang Ling had the Heavenly Tao take them away in advance wasn't for any other reason. It was because of their kind intentions and pitiful life experiences. They had drowned to save a boy who had fallen into the water. After their deaths, their actions hadn't been approved by the boy's family. Perhaps it was because they were worried that the mother and daughter's families would demand compensation. Or maybe it was because of other reasons, but after their deaths, their spirits had never been able to rest in peace. Just now, they had been soaked from head to toe. Thus, Wang Ling decided to help them. Now his top priority was to ferret out the black spirit bodies. May I know why the two of you have graced us with your presence? At that moment, a cold voice rang out behind Wang Ling. Turning his head, Wang Ling saw a stooped old man with snow-white makeup whose hair had already fallen off smiling at him. The other party's smile was very terrifying and eerie. The most important thing was that this person had no shadow. It's this person. Loopy Toad narrowed its eyes. It could clearly sense the evil intent emanating from this old man. Coupled with the fact that he didn't have a shadow, this person was probably the Undertaker they were looking for. What a pity, what a pity! The Undertaker looked regretfully at the mother and daughter who had flown into the sky along with the heavenly Tao golden light. These mother and daughter were going to be my dinner today. I never thought that the heavenly Tao would actually extradite them. Disrespected spirits are the most delicious. If I had enlightened them, they might have had a chance to become evil spirits. It wouldn't be bad to be my subordinate. Wang Ling frowned. This person had already completely fallen onto the evil path. Sure enough, as Wang Ling had expected, Anwan's shadow power could activate the evil in a person's subconscious. This evil was usually hidden and wouldn't flare up at all. But once it was activated, the accumulated evil power would be like blood clots that had been blocked for a long time, erupting in an instant like a geyser. So the truth was that this Undertaker was also a victim. Anwan was still the one to blame for this. Wang Ling was thinking of a countermeasure. This Undertaker's evil intent had already penetrated deep into his bones, and even his shadow had escaped. This was completely different from Father Zheng and Wu Yuanji's situation. Using the Great Seal spell to seal away his power was no longer enough. Should he use the Great Purification spell? Wang Ling quickly flicked his finger on the Undertaker's forehead. But something he hadn't expected happened. Not only wasn't the evil intent in this Undertaker's body purified at all, his aura had instead increased a lot. How could this be? Chapter 1070. Wang Ling felt that he had underestimated Shadow Dao's ability a little. This was the first time Wang Ling had seen a heavenly Dao spell which he had cast be swallowed up. His mind has already been devoured. All of Loopy Toad's fur stood on end as it instinctively sensed danger. This Shadow Dao could devour people's hearts. The weaker a person's realm was, the weaker they would be. Furthermore, it could stimulate their potential. This was different from Wu Yuanji and Father Zheng's situation. When they had a certain realm, their minds wouldn't be completely eroded. Wang Ling frowned slightly. That was to say, if the power of Shadow Dao was used on an ordinary person, that person would instantly become an extremely heaven-defying expert. When their minds were completely devoured, the potential in their bodies would be completely stimulated, and their combat strength would be enough to reach the top of Huaxiao Nation. Furthermore, they might even be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the top experts of the Dark Network. Wang Ling felt that this was a little similar to his Great Enlightenment spell, and it was enlightenment in reverse. Since Wang Nuan's mind wasn't mature yet, it was very normal for this to happen. What Wang Ling needed to do now was to stop her from losing control. What should we do? Asked Loopy Toad. Let's do an experiment, Wang Ling said indifferently. Loopy Toad. Experiment? Listen, was this even human? Compared with Wu Yuanji and Zheng Tianqiang, this Undertakerly Daiwei had been devoured more deeply by Shadow Dao, and Wang Ling felt that he was more suitable as an experimental subject for exploring Shadow Dao. As a new Great Dao, Wang Ling currently knew very little about it. He had a lot of ideas about it, but they were just ideas. All scientific progress was achieved through repeated experiments and verification. What Wang Ling needed to do now was verify his conjecture. Based on the current situation, this Undertaker was a relatively good test subject. What powerful energy! After devouring Wang Ling's Great Purification spell, this Undertaker licked his lips and felt that his strength had improved even more than before. Now that the Great Purification spell had failed, this was Heavenly Dao energy. For the Undertaker, it was like a supplement. Again. After tasting the sweetness, the Undertaker's expression gradually turned even more maniacal. An extremely evil black shadow entrenched itself under his feet like a cyclone, accompanied by black steam. Energy materialization? Loopy Toad was so frightened that it took several steps back, its tail instinctively sweeping around. This was the symbol of a peerless expert. Powerful experts could materialize the energy entrenched in their bodies. According to the records in the Cultivation Encyclopedia, there was a martial artist called Li Shaokai who was able to use energy to the point of perfection. His mastery of body techniques was unparalleled in both ancient and modern times. One of the 10 great generals, Marshal Saint Marshal Jiang, was one of Li Shaokai's disciples. However, Master Li had planned to use his physical skills to break through the Void Gate. In the end, he could not withstand the tearing force of the Void Gate, and disappeared in it. The Void Gate was one of the 3 gates, along with the Gate Between Worlds, and the Gate of Heavenly Tao. The difference was that the Void Gate was born naturally. The Gate Between Worlds was developed by immortal Jin Yuan, while the Gate of Heavenly Tao was specially set up by the Heavenly Tao Governing Committee for experts who had comprehended Heavenly Tao. Being able to enter the Gate of Heavenly Tao meant that one had already come into contact with the realm of Heavenly Tao. As for the Void Gate, it was more like an erratic secret land in the cultivation world. There were plenty of explorers, but the probability of it appearing was extremely low. Furthermore, it had already been 1,000 years since there had been any new fluctuations. Even the most sophisticated monitoring equipment couldn't accurately detect the Void Gate's location. The last time the Void Gate had appeared was during Master Li's birthday banquet. After punching through the air that day, Master Li had disappeared without a trace. Several hundred years later, Master Li was officially confirmed to be dead. But Master Li's body had never been found, and people's speculations about his death were only based on theory. The density at the very center of the Void Gate was close to that of a black hole. Many people thought that while Master Li's body techniques were formidable, it would be very difficult for him to break free once he was sucked in. Even if his body hadn't been torn apart, he would have starved to death after drifting in space for several hundred years without any supplies. But even so, this master's achievement in materializing energy was still recognized by the world. So every time someone demonstrated the phenomenon of energy materialization, a lot of people couldn't help thinking of Li Shaokai. Even someone like Loopy Toad, who was from the demon world, knew the name Li Shaokai, which showed how influential and famous this master had been back then. Wang Ling didn't stop the Undertaker from showing off his skills. He saw the black energy mist at the Undertaker's feet gradually condense behind him and turn into a pure black phantom. This phantom looked like a malicious spirit with 2 horns on its head and 6 arms. It was an extremely peculiar shape. Substitute attack. Loopy Toad couldn't help crying out in alarm. Wang Ling felt that this wasn't as simple as Loopy Toad thought it was. This was probably similar to the image of a heart demon. Because Shadow Dao had swallowed up the mind, this Undertaker's shadow had become an intelligent life form, and it reflected the most evil heart demon in the Undertaker's heart. Whatever the heart demon looked like, the shadow would look like. Let's call it shadow image for now. Wang Ling silently gave this phenomenon a name in his heart. As for the other people who had been corroded by Shadow Dao, their shadow images should also be different. At that moment, the Undertaker looked at Wang Ling, who was standing blankly on the spot, and laughed. 2 juniors. Didn't your moms tell you not to stroll around the cemetery in the middle of the night? Go Soul Eater. Swallow them all. As soon as he said this shadow image called Soul Eater roared on the spot and charged at Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. It opened its bloody mouth full of fine black teeth. This power, Wang Ling frowned. Sure enough, Shadow Dao was very powerful, even more so than he had imagined. This attack seemed simple and unadorned, but it was in fact extremely dense. It was more powerful than any expert Wang Ling had ever seen. In other words, this shadow image was far more durable than someone like Evil Sword God. At the very least, Wang Ling felt that he wouldn't be able to kill it with one slap. Furthermore, Wang Ling judged that ordinary physical attacks wouldn't work on this shadow image. What should he do? Should he break it down from the inside? Wang Ling stretched out his muscles and bones, then stretched out his hand to directly pry open the shadow image's mouth and burrow into its belly. Chapter 1071. Although Little Master Ling often did surprising things, Loopy Toad couldn't help being shocked by directly ripping open a person's mouth like this. It hurriedly pounced over and grabbed the corner of Wang Ling's clothes as they crawled into the shadow image's stomach. What astonished both man and dog was that there was actually another world in the shadow image's stomach. This was a great world with its own laws of operation, but it only had two colors, black and white. If you used a phone to take a picture, each picture would look like a very beautiful ink painting. Wang Ling was once again stunned by his little sister's masterpiece. Not only could she give other people the ability to cast shadows and activate the shadow image, she could actually see a great world in the shadow image's stomach. Wang Ling now felt like someone who had bought a smartphone for 2,000 yuan on the side of the road, only to find that although it was a street product, it was actually made better than the real thing. What was worse was that when he bought it, he thought it was 16 gigabytes, but when he opened it, it turned out to be 256 gigabytes. It could only be said that Wang Wan's Shadow Dao, as a new great Dao, was constantly surprising Wang Ling. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad, two colorful people, entered this black and white world, and looked out of place against the backdrop of this environment. There's a very strong evil aura, Loopy Toad said, and it became even more vigilant. It had sensed evil aura outside, and now that it was in the shadow image's world, it realized that this evil aura was even more intense. Wang Ling frowned, then raised his hands to release two golden protective lights to protect himself and Loopy Toad. He wasn't affected, but he was still worried that Loopy Toad would be swayed by evil thoughts. Although Wang Ling had taught Loopy Toad to walk the right path, it was, after all, a member of the demon race, and would definitely still have evil thoughts in its heart. One of Shadow Dao's abilities was to stimulate evil thoughts in a depressing atmosphere. If Loopy Toad was invaded by the evil aura here, it would be troublesome for Wang Ling later. The heart demon is here. Wang Ling raised his eyes and looked around as he muttered in his heart. The evil aura that Loopy Toad was talking about was none other than the heart demon entrenched in the shadow image's world. Wang Ling guessed that as long as he pulled out the heart demon and crushed it, the shadow image would directly disappear, and the Undertaker outside would return to normal. He gave this world a name, Shadow Palace. He needed to find the inner demon hidden in the hall. The structure of every Shadow Palace world was built according to the mental state of the shadow image. For example, the Undertaker's Shadow Palace was filled with tombs as far as the eye could see. These graves were not as neatly arranged as those in the graveyard, nor were there any neatly arranged stone tablets. This place looked more like a mass grave with all kinds of burial mounds scattered all over the place, making Wang Ling feel like he was in a horror game. Wang Ling walked up to a grave. On the broken black tombstone were a few crooked words. Wang Lin's grave, Wang Lin? Was it the legendary old demon Wang? Wang Ling's heart trembled slightly, but rumor had it that Wang Ling had died long ago while trying to break through the gate of eternal life, and Wang Lin's existence itself was just a legend. This was because there were only 3 gates in the world, and the gate of eternal life did not exist. On the side, Loopy Toad also saw through this. Demons arise from the heart. This is all fake. In the world of the inner demon, everything is nothing more than an illusion. This is a large world, but what you see isn't real, but a true portrayal of your heart. Although it said this, Loopy Toad was well aware that Little Master Ling was the only one who could resist the erosion of this heart demon. If it had been anyone else, they would have very quickly been assimilated by this heart demon world. One man and one dog continued to explore. Unfortunately, there seemed to be no end to this world. Wang Ling saw all kinds of strangely shaped tombstones, none of which were the same. Activating his king's eye, Wang Ling used his omniscient view to search the entire world, and finally found a dilapidated hut in a corner of this world. Wang Ling led Loopy Toad closer, and then stopped in front of the hut. He could sense a human aura inside. Then the door was pushed open, and a kind-looking old man walked out of the room. It was the Undertaker Wang Ling had met in the outside world. The old man's back was hunched, and his expression was as calm as ever. "Come in." It was as if he had known that Wang Ling and Loopy Toad were coming, and he didn't look surprised at all. Instead, he let them in. From the first moment Wang Ling saw the old man, he already knew that he was the embodiment of the inner demon. But contrary to Wang Ling's expectations, while the old man had a strong evil aura, there wasn't the slightest bit of murderous intent. After entering the hut, Wang Ling and Loopy Toad found the old man's belongings. There's nothing else in this hut. The old man sat down on the floor and laughed bitterly. You were actually able to come in. You really aren't simple. Wang Ling was silent. He also sat down cross-legged and gave Loopy Toad a meaningful look for it to ask questions. Loopy Toad understood Wang Ling's meaning. Loopy Toad. Are you the inner demon or? I am and I'm not. Unexpectedly, the old man said something ambiguous. Everyone has a darkness in their hearts. I'm the inner demon. But I'm also a victim. Victim. A person's darkness is suppressed at the bottom of their heart and doesn't come out because of their conscience. I am the conscience in Mr. Li Daiwei's heart. Unfortunately, as you can see, the inner demon has already corroded me. I can't escape from here and, after saying this, the old man looked around. Do you see this hut? From the moment they entered the hut, Loopy Toad had felt that it was strange. After the old man said this, Wang Ling and Loopy Toad divided their attention. In the end, they were astonished to find that the hut was actually slowly shrinking. The size of this hut corresponds to the size of the remaining conscience. As for the graveyard outside this house, it's all the territory that has been eroded by the inner demons. The old man sighed faintly. Before this, the graveyard was not large, and this house was not a house. It was a huge palace. Unfortunately, after Mr. Li Daiwei ate a bag of frozen dumplings a few days ago, the palace was eaten away. In the end, it shrank continuously until it became this rundown hut. This old man who had been living in the palace all this time wasn't spared in the end, and the inner demon took over. The moment this hut is completely corroded, this old man will become a true inner demon. There should be a way to stop it, right? Asked Loopy Toad. The old man shook his head helplessly. There's no solution. No solution? I'm the conscience that's been invaded by the inner demon. If you kill me, you can indeed kill the inner demon, and it might seem like you've stopped everything. But at the same time, you have to remember that you've also killed the conscience. The old man said, whenever a person's conscience is destroyed, what's the difference between being alive and being dead? Chapter 1072. For Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. This was undoubtedly a dilemma. The conscience of this undertaker had been tainted by the heart demon, and the two had now become one. If they destroyed the old man in front of them, the heart demon would disappear, but the conscience would be swallowed up as well. Wang Ling realized that he couldn't do it, and the situation started to get anxious. The most important thing was that Wang Ling had never encountered this kind of situation before. If he couldn't solve the problem of this old man, even if he found all the people who had eaten the special frozen dumplings, he still wouldn't be able to solve the root of the problem. Furthermore, as time went on, the erosion of the other people's consciences might be stronger than this undertaker's. What should he do? Should he ask the heavenly Tao about the situation? Wang Ling was thinking about how to solve the current predicament. Asking the heavenly Tao was always the right thing to do. Perhaps there was a magic treasure in the heavenly Tao treasure house that could deal with this problem. Thinking this, Wang Ling bit his finger and started to set up a heavenly Tao summoning array in the dilapidated house. The old man didn't know where Wang Ling and Loopy Toad had come from, but seeing that they could actually go so deep into this place, he knew that they weren't ordinary people. Now that he saw Wang Ling set up an array on the ground that he couldn't understand, he was even more shocked. All of this was too frightening. Wang Ling seemed to be the same age as his youngest son, but he could actually do this. A moment later, the heavenly Tao little golden man was summoned again. But this time, it was obvious that he was in pain after being summoned. Heart demon erosion? The little golden men immediately sensed the situation nearby. Each of the heavenly Tao little golden men was an extremely pure individual who symbolized supremacy, light, and holiness. In such a polluted environment, they instinctively felt uncomfortable. It was like a human who had lived in the forest for a long time and suddenly came to a city full of traffic and exhaust fumes. There would always be a feeling of not being able to adapt to it. The house was still shrinking. If even the last bit of conscience was completely eroded by the heart demon, then the only thing that could happen to the old man was destruction. It's too late. The little golden man knew why Wang Ling had summoned him. His whole body shone with golden light, and several large golden hands full of cryptic runes stretched out of the air to hold the walls of the house up. However, this could only delay the erosion of the inner demons, and could not completely eradicate the occurrence of such a situation. What now? Loopy Toad couldn't help asking. The little golden man wiped his sweat. Clearly, even the heavenly Tao had not expected the situation to be so tricky. I've been in the heavenly Tao class for several hundred years, and can be considered knowledgeable, but why have I never seen this great Tao before? Loopy Toad replied. Of course you haven't. This is my master's little sister's great Tao, although she hasn't been born yet. The little golden man was enlightened. So it was another demon that was born to be a boss. And it was obvious that she was a she-devil. It clearly hadn't been born yet, but it already had this kind of power. It was even more powerful than Wang Ling back then. The little golden man was well aware that it was only when Wang Ling had been born that he had become violent, and had been very well behaved in the womb. Who would have thought that the children he gave birth to would be so troublesome? It was the heavens who wanted to destroy the heavenly Tao. The little golden man sobbed inwardly. Don't cry, is there a solution? Loopy Toad asked. It's actually not uncommon to be invaded by a heart demon. The little golden man straightened his expression, and began to analyze the situation. Generally speaking, there are only a few ways to be invaded by a heart demon. The first is cultivation deviation. This kind of heart demon invasion is the most common, as well as the simplest and crudest. The victim's chi and blood will flow in reverse, which will endanger their lives. It may seem very serious, but it's the lowest level of heart demon invasion. As long as there's someone around to protect you, and if you notice a cultivation deviation, you can relieve it with medicine in time. There are levels? Of course there are levels. Every year, the Heavenly Tao Department takes in countless people who die from cultivation deviation. Those who suffer from cultivation deviation are usually missing parts of their 3 souls and 6 spirits. Thus, a large number of them are unable to reincarnate and become humans. There was such a saying. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad had once again learned something new. Then what level is this old man at? Hearing this, the old man couldn't help asking about his condition. He looked very apprehensive and trembled all over. Listen to me slowly. The little golden man said unhurriedly. The little golden man said unhurriedly. A heart demon invasion can be divided into 3 levels. What I experienced just now was level 3, which is also the lowest level. What I'm talking about is level 2. Level 2 heart demon invasion is commonly seen when a Tao heart collapses, and there are many reasons for this. For example, a stock crash, a girlfriend running away, a full health player who didn't get the chess piece he wanted in Go was killed with 1 hit, a lottery number short of 1 place, an author he likes doesn't update, a spinach competitor gets cut like a leak, summer vacation is almost over but he hasn't written a single word on his homework, and so on. In short, the reasons for a Tao heart collapse are complicated and ever-changing, and usually have to do with a person's mental endurance. According to the Heavenly Tao Governing Committee's annual statistics, the higher a person's realm, the more likely their Tao heart will collapse. A high realm often means that their self-esteem is stronger than the average person's. Once these people's bottom line is touched by something, they will feel a great sense of defeat, and their Tao heart will collapse. The little golden man said, many cultivators die every year because their Tao heart collapses, but it can also be cured. It can also be brought back with medicine. If you have the bell of purification, one of the Heavenly Tao 33 treasures, you can even instantly cure level 2 and 3 heart demon collapses. As for level 1, the situation is more complicated. The first level of inner demon corruption was a combination of the second and third levels. In other words, the collapse of one's Tao heart occurred at the same time that one's chi deviation occurred. If it was the first level, it would only take a short 10 seconds for a cultivator to die from the first level of inner demon corruption, unless first aid was very timely. This phenomenon is relatively rare. There have been cases? Of course there have been, the little golden man said. For example, the Heavenly Tao Department once received the soul of a cultivator who had been cultivating in seclusion and happened to suffer qi deviation. Before he was completely cured, he sent a message to his family to let them know that he was safe. However, he didn't expect that while he was in seclusion, his fiancée would marry someone else. His Tao heart collapsed and he suffered qi deviation. Then the old man pointed at himself and looked eagerly at the little golden man. You level 0, the little golden man replied. There's a level 0? This is also the highest level. I decided this after observing the situation. I intend to report to the Heavenly Tao Governing Committee and update the ranking system. This level 0 heart demon invasion is much more powerful than I imagined. Chapter 1073. Was he really incurable? Hearing the Heavenly Tao's words, Wang Ling's gaze gradually darkened. Seeing that the old man's last shred of conscience was about to be swallowed up by the heart demon, Wang Ling came up with an idea and decided to give it one last try. He stretched his hand into the air and actually pulled out another old man from the space crack, but this old man wasn't corroded by the heart demon at all. Then, Wang Ling put his other hand on the old man who was about to be swallowed up by the heart demon, and used his own body as a bridge to guide the heart demon, splitting the first old man's heart demon in half. This is acid-base neutralization, Wang Ling said. It was a very simple chemical principle. It could be done when combined with Fate Tao. The old man whom Wang Ling had pulled out of the space tunnel just now had been pulled out from another parallel space using Fate Tao. Since the old man's heart demon corrosion was already beyond cure, Wang Ling thought he could use this method to stall for time. In the end, after Wang Ling had done this, the Heavenly Tao little golden man suddenly said, "There's hope." Hope. The heart demon corrosion was already too severe. If it's to this extent, the bell of purification can cure it. The little golden man replied quickly. I'll go to the treasury to get the bell of purification. Don't go through the procedure. No need for a white list. In 10 seconds or so, the little golden man made a hand seal and pressed it on the ground. Smoke suddenly rose from the ground, and a colorful glazed magic seed appeared in front of Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. Floating slightly in the air, this seed seemed to have the power to purify all living things, and gave off a pure and holy aura. Compared with the power of the bell of purification, Wang Ling sensed that the great purification spell was far inferior. When all was said and done, it was a super powerful magic treasure, one of the 33 heavenly Tao treasures. Wang Ling sighed in his heart as he picked up the bell of purification with his bare hands. This heavenly Tao treasure didn't put up any resistance in Wang Ling's hands, which made the little golden man apprehensive. If an ordinary cultivator had the chance to encounter a heavenly Tao treasure, as long as it didn't recognize them as its master, they absolutely wouldn't let anyone touch them. In the end, this bell of purification was as obedient as a baby in Wang Ling's hands. Holding the bell of purification, Wang Ling shook it in front of the two conscience elders, and the black mist in their bodies dissipated on the spot. The heart demon was completely purified on the spot. After all this was done, Wang Ling stuffed the conscience old man, who had been transferred out of another parallel universe, back in. The old house under their feet also started to shake slightly. In the blink of an eye, the dilapidated house had turned back into a huge palace. Sunlight shone through the windows, and the world outside the palace was full of life. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad were finally relieved. Fortunately, he had learned Fate Tao, otherwise he really wouldn't know what to do in this situation. That can you? The little golden man stared at the bell of purification in Wang Ling's hand, and tried to take it back. Of course, he wasn't the kind of person who wouldn't return what he borrowed. 33 supreme treasures of the heavenly Tao. They belonged to the heavenly Tao in the first place, Ling Tu, and in Bell, but Wang Ling knew the Tao Ling the heart demon, and the Heave, which he the of the Ling knew the 33. Tao of it of the Tao of divine. Now that he had solved the problem of the Undertaker, there were still 8 other people waiting for him. Of course, Wang Ling wasn't completely selfless. When he had shaken the bell of purification just now, he thought it sounded pretty nice. He thought that maybe he could give this bell to his little sister as a toy. Anwan was too headstrong and easily stirred up trouble. This bell of purification had the effect of dispelling demonic nature and calming anger, so it was perfect for Anwan. Thinking this, Wang Ling happily put the bell of purification away. Seeing this scene, the little golden man anxiously stared at it angrily, but didn't dare say anything. After returning to the land of Heavenly Dao, the little golden man in charge of everything related to Wang Ling was criticized by the 6 main Heavenly Dao members of the Heavenly Dao Governing Committee. I didn't do it on purpose. The little golden man felt very wronged. If you think you can get it back, go ask him yourself. I don't want you to think, I want me to think. The 6 main Heavenly Dao took turns reprimanding him. I'm the main Heavenly Dao, listen to me. Can't get it back? I don't think it's a problem. Even if it is, it's a problem for you people in charge, and you have to solve it. I don't care if I can get it back or not. I have to get it back. I'll say it again. I have to get it back even if I can't. Don't ask me if I can get it back or not. I have to get it back. Do you understand? I have to get it back. If you can't get it back, I think you shouldn't do it anymore, right? A few seconds later, the little golden man burst into tears. Elsewhere, Wang Ling, who had obtained the bell of purification, began the second stage of his purification journey. The Undertaker's problem was solved. The shadow image behind him directly disappeared, and the souls that had been swallowed by the shadow image were released, waiting to enter the cycle of Heavenly Dao. Wang Ling's second stop was a hospital in the city center. Wang Ling wasn't unfamiliar with this place, because it was the same hospital that Director Li had worked in back then. He remembered that this was a special economic zone's protective ward, mainly used to isolate patients with special diseases. It was naturally a little strange for Wang Ling to come uninvited in the middle of the night. Fortunately, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already arranged for Wang Ling to stay here. The Office of Strategic Deception had sent someone to stand guard here, and the person waiting for Wang Ling at his second stop was Little Silver. Master. From afar, Wang Ling saw a silver-haired young man barefoot waving at him. You didn't even put on a disguise and came out just like that? Loopy Toad stared at Little Silver in surprise. Little Silver had always worn a hat when he went out previously to hide the 2 horns on his head. No need, it's so hot wearing a hat, my horns are cooked in it. Little Silver said. Isn't Neza popular recently? That's right. If someone asks about my horns, I'll say I'm cosplaying as Ao Bing. Loopy Toad and Wang Ling both sucked in breaths. From a certain point of view, this guy was really a talent. There was no time to lose. As he led the excavator inside, Little Silver introduced the second-person situation. Master, this person's situation is a little special. He's Pika. That's why he's been receiving treatment here. Pika? Then how did he eat that bag of frozen dumplings? I heard from the nurse that he only ate half a mouthful that day before he threw it up. Maybe he didn't throw it all up. Chapter 1074. Wang Ling thought this was good news. Although he had agreed to eat the dumplings, this person was Pika, and his body wasn't very receptive to normal food, so he had only eaten a little. If he had only eaten a little, then the erosion of the heart demon probably wouldn't be too severe. Why did he get Pika? Loopy Toad couldn't help asking as it followed Little Silver to the ward. The patient was a girl who kept talking about losing weight. At first it was just a cucumber a day, but then she stopped eating. She was so hungry that she didn't want to eat anything, so she suddenly fell in love with coal ash. Coal ash doesn't have much fat, and it's very filling, so the girl ate it happily. In the end, she got poisoned while eating it, and was then sent to the hospital. Little Silver said as he took out his phone to look for photos. This was the information he had obtained from the doctor. Look, this is a picture of the girl when she was healthy, Little Silver said. Wang Ling and Loopy Toad looked at the phone screen. This was a girl with a perfect figure, and had already matured very well. She had put on weight in all the right places. This child doesn't look fat. She doesn't need to lose weight at all. Loopy Toad didn't quite understand why some boys and girls would go to any lengths to lose weight. If you were hungry, you had to eat. Wouldn't it be fine as long as you exercised every day? You couldn't put on weight at all. A healthy diet was the key. As long as you cut off your high intake of fat, eating a healthy diet and exercising properly, maintaining a good figure wasn't a dream. After all, not everyone could be like Wang Ling, who could use his bare hands to rub off the fat on his body like plasticine at any time. For the time being, let's go check on her. Wang Ling looked at the phone screen with an indifferent expression. With the bell of purification in hand, it shouldn't be a problem for him to exorcise the heart demon. A few minutes later, Little Silver led Wang Ling to the ward in the Special Economic Zone. Wang Ling, Little Silver, and Loopy Toad all put on white coats, which were specially made for Loopy Toad. The Office of Strategic Deception had given them a new identity as external doctors. When the head nurse saw Little Silver bring Wang Ling and Loopy Toad over, she looked at Wang Ling's extremely young face and marveled in her heart. "You're Dr. Wang so young." "Wang Ling. Don't mind him, head nurse. Teacher doesn't like to talk much, so I'll have to trouble you." Little Silver took the initiative to greet the head nurse. "Okay." The head nurse nodded blankly. Before Wang Ling and Loopy Toad had arrived, Little Silver had already done all the preparations. Their documents were complete, and their disguises were in place. Even so, the head nurse was still very curious about him. He felt that Dr. Wang was too young, and seemed to have a strong personality. He liked to bring a spirit dog with him when he went out to see patients. It was rare to see such a young, handsome, and charismatic doctor. When it came to Wang Ling, the head nurse's imagination instantly ran wild. "Please follow me." The head nurse took out her universal magnetic card and led the way. All the rooms in the special ward were separated, and many special patients were treated there. Originally, the girl with pica wouldn't have come here, but after eating the dumplings, she suddenly developed a mental condition for some reason. Not only that, but her appetite has also increased. Although she has started to eat, she has been gluttonous. In a short period of time, her weight has increased by 30 kilograms. The head nurse frowned. "We've never seen this kind of condition before, and suspect that it's a special illness, so we've isolated her here for observation and treatment." Wang Ling nodded. He followed the head nurse forward, and when they reached the door of Ward 1306, a girl's hysterical scream rang out from inside. "As you can see, the girl has gone crazy again, and is clamoring to eat." The head nurse sighed. The walls of this ward are made of a special memory foam to prevent crazy patients from doing dangerous things like banging their heads against the wall. Even if it's damaged, it can be restored in a short time, and it can absorb water and fire. Since this girl was triggered by the frozen dumplings, what happened to the frozen dumplings? Asked Loopy Toad. "They've all been dumped," said the head nurse. Little Silver then added telepathically to Wang Ling and Loopy Toad. "Don't worry, Master. Grenade throwing has already arranged for all the frozen dumplings to be recovered." Wang Ling heaved a sigh of relief at this news. In any case, it was a good thing that the dumplings hadn't continued to flow out. The head nurse swiped the magnetic card at the door, then shrank behind Wang Ling a little fearfully. "Dr. Wang, I'm afraid." Wang Ling. Seeing this, Little Silver hurriedly grabbed the head nurse's hand, then turned around and stood in front of her. "Head nurse, Teacher Wang is a neat freak. It's better if you don't touch him." The head nurse resentfully moved her hand away. She knew that it wasn't good for an old cow to eat young grass. But people always had dreams. After hearing the head nurse's thoughts, Wang Ling was speechless. This deranged author had made the female lead of this book a crispy noodle snack, and had even written out Lotus Sunday as an old cow. What qualifications did you have to compare with Lotus Sun? Lotus Sun wasn't even the female lead, and you wanted to be? This wasn't a dream. It was purely a dream. Ignoring the head nurse's dream, Wang Ling pushed open the door. There was no furniture in this special ward, so it didn't matter how much this girl threw a tantrum inside. Seeing that someone had come, the girl's expression gradually turned crazy. She stared at Wang Ling and sniffed as she muttered incessantly, "Crispy noodle snack, crispy noodle snack, crispy noodle snack." She could smell the scent of crispy noodle snack on Wang Ling. Then she sniffed Little Silver. Broccoli, broccoli, broccoli. What skill is this? Little Silver was startled. The head nurse hiding in the back explained. Ever since this girl went crazy, it seems she can smell what other people have eaten within a few hours. So that's how it is. Realization dawned on Little Silver. He had indeed eaten broccoli salad with grenade throwing before coming here. It was just that he hadn't expected this kind of odorless thing to actually be smelled out. The girl's eyes gradually turned crazy. She stared at the head nurse hiding in the back, and repeated what the head nurse had eaten. Garlic, garlic, garlic. The head nurse lowered her head and blew on her palm. She had eaten garlic that night, but in order not to disturb other people, she had rinsed her mouth and even used a lot of chewing gum. Who would have thought that the girl would still smell it? Finally, the girl's gaze turned to Loopy Toad. Shit, shit, shit. At that moment, everyone's eyes turned to Loopy Toad in unison, and all of them looked horrified. Chapter 1075. As the saying went, a dog can't stop eating shit. Although Loopy Toad's soul and body had reached a very high degree of synchronization after it had turned into a dog, it still felt that as a grand demon king of the sky-swallowing Toad clan, its toad nature couldn't be extinguished. But what Loopy Toad hadn't expected was that when it walked down the street and saw a pile of dog shit that looked as fresh as ice cream, for some reason, the thought of licking it sprouted in its mind. This was like a dog that had to lift one leg to pee. It was an impossible reaction. When Loopy Toad was done, it realized that it was already too late, because it had happened so suddenly. Although Loopy Toad had been at Wang Ling's side the whole time, he had only been focused on finding the person who had eaten the 9 special frozen dumplings, and hadn't paid attention to Loopy Toad's situation at his feet. Loopy Toad felt very lucky. After all, this had been a very humiliating act. But Loopy Toad never expected that a crazy girl with pica would actually see through it at this critical juncture. Even the way Little Silver looked at Loopy Toad was different. Senior brother. Because Little Silver had come later than Loopy Toad, as Wang Ling's second battle pet, he had already acknowledged his status as junior brother in terms of seniority. It was just that Little Silver had never called Loopy Toad senior brother, and now that he had suddenly called Loopy Toad senior brother, Loopy Toad found it particularly jarring. Loopy Toad. Little Silver. Senior brother, no need to explain, we all understand. The head nurse in the back also echoed. A dog can't stop eating shit, everyone understands. Loopy Toad. This time Loopy Toad realized that it couldn't wash itself clean even if it jumped into the Yellow River. Of course, Wang Ling himself didn't have much of a reaction to Loopy Toad's behavior, and just felt a little disgusted. His top priority now was to save the girl in front of him. There was a crazed look on the girl's face. After analyzing what everyone had eaten in the last few hours, Wang Ling thought that she would pounce on him. But he never expected her to actually shrink into a corner and hug her feet. What's going on? Little Silver asked. Apart from the head nurse, there were only 3 straight men present, and they naturally couldn't understand what the girl was thinking. But seeing that the originally crazed girl had suddenly calmed down, the head nurse understood what she was thinking. She's probably shy, or maybe she wants to appear a little more reserved. Why? Little Silver didn't understand. What's the original purpose of many young girls losing weight? For the sake of beauty. Why did it have to be pretty? In other words, she wanted to find a boyfriend who loved her dearly. Especially for this kind of adolescent girl, the standard for finding a boyfriend was not necessarily money. Most of them were still based on looks. When I meet a good-looking guy, I will subconsciously try to be reserved. The head nurse analyzed logically. For example, some girls who usually have a big appetite would become reserved when they go out on a date with a guy. They would even look a little embarrassed when eating in small bites. It's completely different from when I was eating instant noodles in my dorm room. Another example is that young girls sometimes like to hold hands and talk loudly, but as long as a good-looking boy passes by, they will stop talking. The little girl's voice suddenly became softer, whispering softly, extremely gentle. Realization instantly dawned on Wang Ling, Little Silver and Loopy Toad. and they started to sigh at the truth in their hearts. Although this head nurse was an old cow preying on young grass, her analysis was still very reasonable. But here was the problem. Wang Ling didn't think he was very handsome now. He had specially adjusted his face. It would be too strange if these young ladies still took a fancy to him like this. Wang Ling walked over and started to turn on the lights in the room. After he turned off a few lights, the girl's shadow image quickly took shape in front of him. It was a shadow image that looked like an ox demon, except that its head was replaced by 2 ice cream cones, and it was holding 2 baguettes in its hands. As the saying went, one's appearance was born from one's heart. Just from the shadow image alone, this was very much in line with the girl's heart. Wang Ling walked over unceremoniously, pried open the shadow image's mouth, and crawled inside to the shadow palace to look for the girl's inner demon. Wang Ling appeared in the same ink and wash style world as before, but it was different from the world of the Undertaker from before. This world, which had been invaded by the inner demon, wasn't made up of a graveyard, but of snack mountains. All kinds of potato chips were piled up together, and there was also a dark chocolate river that ran through the entire world without end. As Wang Ling approached, he could smell a strong fragrance. It had to be said that he was startled by the scenery in this world. After Wang Ling and Loopy Toad took a few steps forward, a huge hot pot mountain appeared in front of them. This was a volcano, but there were a lot of common hot pot dishes like fish balls, beef balls, shrimp dumplings, bamboo wheels, bean curd, and so on at the mouth of the volcano. Although they were all black and white in the style of an ink and wash painting, the food was distinct and gave off a delicious aroma. Just by getting close, one couldn't help drooling. Loopy Toad felt that the situation wasn't good. It had thought that the girl had only eaten a few dumplings, so the erosion shouldn't be so serious. It hadn't expected that the extent of the girl's inner demon erosion would be far more severe than they had imagined. Perhaps this was the result of suppressing it for too long. Because she had been on a diet all this time to lose weight, the girl had constantly suppressed her desire to eat. In the end, this desire had been completely stimulated by a few frozen dumplings. Everything in front of them was high-calorie food, which was taboo for dieters. Loopy Toad didn't dare approach them rashly, and waited for Wang Ling to make a decision. Wang Ling braced himself and searched this world for clues about the Shadow Palace. In the Undertaker's world, the Undertaker's Shadow Palace had been a house, but what was the girl's Shadow Palace like? Maybe it was something to eat. Wang Ling made some kind of guess. He used the king's eye to search the area, but in the end found nothing. There wasn't anything like a house in this world, so the girl had probably hidden her Shadow Palace in some kind of food. Loopy Toad searched behind Wang Ling, but in the end realized that their search seemed to be a little off track. As they walked, Loopy Toad realized that Wang Ling was actually walking toward a forest of crispy noodle snacks. Wang Ling looked up at the crispy noodle snacks forest, which was actually full of crispy noodle snack fruit trees. Crispy noodle snack packets grew out of the branches like apples. Loopy Toad was stupefied. Who could stand this? Chapter 1076. The moment the forest of crispy noodle snacks appeared, Loopy Toad realized that the situation was gradually starting to spiral out of control. Although this forest of crispy noodle snacks was a manifestation of the heart demon, everything in front of it was too real. Even from a long distance away, Loopy Toad could smell the aroma of crispy noodle snacks and pepper wafting out of the forest. It knew its little masterling too well. How could he resist this kind of temptation? No. I have to think of something. Looking at Wang Ling, who was gradually becoming absent-minded, Loopy Toad bit down on his trouser leg and started to drag him backward. But Wang Ling was so strong that Loopy Toad realized that it couldn't stop him at all. It bit down hard on Wang Ling's trouser leg as it was dragged along the ground with its head, plowing a deep gully in the ground. No, it had to ask for help. Loopy Toad gritted its teeth and took out an immortal seal. This was a gift from immortal Jin Yuan back then, and it could summon him to the scene when necessary. In this situation, the fastest way Loopy Toad could think of to ask for help was to summon Jin Yuan to the scene. Little Silver stood guard outside and couldn't come in. This was to prevent the girl from doing anything unusual. Natural Tao. Seal done. Loopy Toad shouted inwardly. After injecting spirit energy into it, the Zhenyuan immortal seal very quickly erupted with powerful spirit power. Energy condensed in the air, and finally turned into a human figure in the air. As always, immortal Zhenyuan had a head of red hair, and was wreathed in red spirit light as he descended from the heavens. Immortal Zhenyuan cultivated the positive yang original art, which was a god-level fire technique. It had a miraculous effect on exorcising demons and ghosts. After the appearance of the heart demon world, the originally dark world seemed to have a little more luster. Senior Dog. Zhenyuan came over from a distance to greet immortal Zhenyuan. He was still working on Drought Star, and had been hoping that Senior Dog would summon him to do odd jobs for it. Who would have thought that after so many days, Senior Dog would finally remember him? This kind of excitement was no different from a missing-up master remembering the password to his own video website. Immortal Zhenyuan looked around excitedly, and then his entire body froze. The Heart Demon world. Although he did not know about the Shadow Palace, he immediately realized that the element that formed this world was the Heart Demon. When it came to inner demons, Zhenyuan himself had experienced them. Back then, he had separated his inner demon Wind Spirit, because of his inner demons, and in the end he had personally destroyed it. That melancholy was still vivid in Zhenyuan's mind. Dealing with an inner demon was scary enough. Not to mention this world made up of inner demons? Come. Loopy Toad didn't say anything unnecessary, and immediately called for Zhenyuan to pull Wang Ling over. It already couldn't hold on much longer, but when it remembered that it was Senior Dog in front of Zhenyuan, it automatically switched to a commanding tone. Last time, Loopy Toad had borrowed Wang Ling's tiger might to help Zhenyuan eliminate Wind Spirit. Since then, Zhenyuan had always regarded it as his senior, and had even revered it as a divine dog. Alright, Senior Dog. There's no need for Senior to handle such a small matter. I'll do it. In the next moment, Zhenyuan straightaway made a move. Because he firmly believed that he had this Senior Dog behind him, he acted without the slightest misgivings. Heaven Sunlock. He made a hand seal at the speed of light, and his slender knuckles changed continuously like a blooming fire lotus. In a split second, several golden discs appeared in the sky, and blazing red gold chains of fire abruptly emerged from them to firmly grasp Wang Ling's ankles. The Heaven Sunlock was one of immortal Zhenyuan's self-confidence magic treasures, which could suppress powerful spirit beasts, demon beasts, and even extremely fierce beasts. This was the self-confidence of a man who focused on creating magic treasures. When it came to creating magic treasures, Wang Ling actually also agreed with Zhenyuan a lot. After all, this was the man who had created the gate between worlds. If it hadn't been for the gate, Loopy Toad wouldn't have met Wang Ling. If it hadn't met Wang Ling, Loopy Toad felt that it probably wouldn't be where it was now at all. It had already hit a bottleneck when it was a demon king. If this situation continued, the sky-swallowing Toad clan might be swallowed up by the other demon clans sooner or later. It could be said that the karma of the gate between worlds had changed the outcome of a lot of things. Thus, Loopy Toad was extremely confident in the Heaven Sunlock which Zhenyuan had created. Even if it couldn't hold Little Master Ling back, it could at least buy him some time, right? Since Little Master was still sealed, in theory, Loopy Toad should have been able to forcibly subdue Wang Ling before he was completely released. But as it turned out, the process was far more difficult than Loopy Toad had imagined. Just as the chain latched onto Wang Ling's ankle, a protective golden light directly pulverized it into powder. My Heaven Sunlock! Zhenyuan's heart was broken. The Heaven Sunlock was his proudest creation, which he had spent a long time searching for materials in the universe to complete. But this youngster was actually able to shatter Loopy Toad's Heaven Sunlock with just his protective golden light? This was a little unexpected for Zhenyuan. It looked like Senior Dog had found him a very good opponent this time. Perhaps this was Senior Dog's test for him? He had to put on a good show. This youngster's abnormal behavior of walking uncontrollably toward the forest of crispy noodle snacks was a classic sign that he had been corrupted by a heart demon. Perhaps he had been corrupted by this world's heart demon? In that instant, Zhenyuan thought of many complicated possibilities. Looking at Wang Ling's young face, he couldn't help sighing in his heart. In the end, this was still a youngster who didn't come out into the world, and couldn't withstand the pressure of this environment at all. Jin Yuan smiled regretfully in his heart. Now that he knew that the youngster couldn't control his body because of a heart demon, the rest was very easy to handle. Thinking this, Jin Yuan unhurriedly took out a second magic treasure. Loopy Toad noticed that it was actually a lighter. Senior Dog, this is the fire of the universe I collected when I wandered the universe. It contains holy power that can purify a heart demon. Why a lighter? This is the legendary nuclear lighter. And I also have a nuclear flashlight with it. Is it effective? Loopy Toad questioned. The heart demon here was formed from Shadow Dao, and even the great purification spell had no effect. But this was Loopy Toad's first time seeing the fire of the universe. This was a kind of rainbow flame which was refined from the core flames of various stars in the depths of the universe. Since things had come to this point, Loopy Toad had no other choice but to let Jin Yuan give it a try first. Don't worry, Senior Dog, this fire of the universe will automatically purify the heart demon. Pa. Jin Yuan aimed at Wang Ling and pressed the button on the nuclear lighter. The fire of the universe had its own intelligence, and the moment it scuttled out of the lighter, it confidently lunged at Wang Ling. But before it was halfway there, Jin Yuan was astonished by a scene. The little seven-colored flame actually retracted back into the lighter and shivered Jin Yuan. The fire of the universe was actually scared to this extent? Who on earth did Senior Dog want him to deal with? Chapter 1077. The situation was far beyond immortal Jin Yuan's expectations. The fire of the universe was one of the most intelligent flames in the universe, and logically speaking, it wouldn't be frightened under normal circumstances. But the fire of the universe was actually afraid. Immortal Jin Yuan found it inconceivable. Senior Dog, who on earth is this senior? Now that things had come to this, Loopy Toad felt that it could no longer hide its identity as a senior, so it could only tell Jin Yuan the truth. This is my master. This youngster was actually Senior Dog's master. Sure enough, Jin Yuan was gobsmacked. Senior Dog was already strong enough. Then wouldn't its master be ridiculously strong? Looking at Jin Yuan's surprised but not angry expression, Loopy Toad also found it inconceivable. You're not angry? Why would I be? Jin Yuan raised his eyebrows. I've already seen Senior Dog's strength. Since this youngster is Senior Dog's master, he must be even stronger than Senior Dog. What I, Jin Yuan, love the most in my life is to make friends with strong people. Senior Dog thought of me at this critical moment, and even introduced me to its master, which proves that it views me as family. I can't wait to be grateful. Why would I blame it? Loopy Toad was stunned. So this was what this guy was thinking. He didn't suspect at all that Loopy Toad had deceived him. When all was said and done, this was the first human to reach the venerated immortal level. It was no wonder that he had such a pure mind. In comparison, Loopy Toad felt that it was really too evil. Furthermore, this was probably one of the reasons why it hadn't transformed into a human form yet. Seeing Wang Ling walk forward step by step, Jin Yuan's expression turned serious. Since this is Senior Dog's master, we can only use extreme measures. If Senior Dog can't stop him, we might have a glimmer of hope if we join forces. Loopy Toad was lost in thought. It really couldn't bear to give Jin Yuan a blow. Because even if they joined forces, there was no hope at all. If Loopy Toad was really strong, at Little Silver's level for example, they might be able to stop Wang Ling together. But now it really couldn't. Loopy Toad was still hesitant. If they really fought, it would be completely exposed. It would lay down all its dignity in front of Jin Yuan, and might even be despised by him. What should it do in this situation? Loopy Toad grit its teeth as it watched Wang Ling descend into the forest of crispy noodle snacks created by his heart demon. Perhaps he could give it a try? It would use the true meaning of Sword Dao that Wang Ling had passed on to it, and combine it with all the skills it had now, to block the way. It had already lived by Wang Ling's side for more than half a year, and Loopy Toad already felt that it couldn't ignore the bond between master and servant. It couldn't abandon Wang Ling, and allow him to fall into his inner demon. It would never abandon Wang Ling at any time. Go! Despite its hesitation, Loopy Toad clenched its teeth and started to circulate all the spirit energy in its body. It already didn't care what Jin Yuan thought of it after it exposed its true strength, let alone whether it would lose its dignity. It only cared about Wang Ling. It didn't want to watch helplessly as Wang Ling was corroded by the heart demon. Thus, at that moment, Loopy Toad exploded with all the power in its body. It activated Sword Dao and boosted it with the improved Demon King Heart Sutra, releasing its spirit chi from every pore on its body. In the blink of an eye, Loopy Toad's green dog fur fluttered despite the lack of wind, and green steam began to seep out of its body. Sword Dao was also a kind of heavenly Dao, which Wang Ling had stripped from Evil Sword God, and given to Loopy Toad as a gift. Loopy Toad never thought it would actually come in handy in a place like this. It had been painstakingly cultivating Sword Dao for the past few months, and perhaps it hadn't realized its power, but now that it had released all of its power, the steam rising from its body still startled Loopy Toad. Energy materialization was also a phenomenon that Loopy Toad was experiencing. As expected, Senior Dog is powerful. Looking at this scene, Jin Yuan sighed in his heart. To be honest, he had also wondered before whether Loopy Toad wasn't as strong as he had imagined, but now it looked like he had been worrying too much. It was actually able to combine the true meaning of Sword Dao with its teeth. This wasn't a power that an ordinary person could possess. But this senior dog hadn't just combined them, it had done so brilliantly that it was already so powerful that it could materialize energy, which completely dispelled Jin Yuan's doubts about Loopy Toad. But dispelling his doubts was one thing, and Loopy Toad was well aware of its own capabilities. Estimating its current total battle strength, if it went all out and stacked with Jin Yuan's battle strength, it would just barely be able to withstand 3 of Wang Ling's attacks while Jin Yuan was still sealed. In other words, it would die if it took 3 slaps. This unit of measurement was already a lot better than Evil Sword Gods. But now Wang Ling didn't have any intention of attacking, so their lives naturally weren't in danger. But holding Wang Ling back was still as difficult as ascending to heaven. Guard me. Even so, Loopy Toad didn't intend to give up. It barked an order at Jin Yuan, and moved at a high speed to charge forward again, and bite the leg of Wang Ling's pants. The true meaning of Sword Dao was instantly unleashed by Loopy Toad's teeth, and a Sword Dao array appeared in the air. 7 swords descending the heavenly mountain. Like the teeth of a dog, 7 swords of light descended in a crisscross pattern to instantly form a cage around Wang Ling's success. Strengthen the seal. Loopy Toad continued to exert force, and the green dog fur on its body danced like flames. Senior Dog, I'm coming. On the other side, Jin Yuan and Loopy Toad worked together exceptionally well. The moment the 7 swords descending the heavenly mountain was unleashed, the Jin Yuan Dharma seal was completed, and a huge jade seal fell from the sky through a space tunnel. Celestial Emperor's Jade Seal. This was another magic treasure that Jin Yuan was confident in, and it had a powerful suppressive effect. Furthermore, Jin Yuan's blood essence was sealed inside this jade seal. A drop of venerated immortal blood was as heavy as half a planet, and when combined with the Celestial Emperor's Jade Seal, the suppressive effect was extraordinary. Loopy Toad was extremely excited. Its excitement made all the blood in its body circulate faster. Then all of a sudden, Loopy Toad felt a strange power emerge inside its body. This was a human form? Was it finally going to cultivate a human form? Loopy Toad was excited. It never thought that this battle would actually indirectly open up its blocked meridians. And in this moment, after its long-awaited wish, its human form would finally appear. Loopy Toad was so happy that it couldn't close its mouth. A few seconds later, it transformed into a green-haired young man with cute little canine teeth, just like a magical girl. At that moment, Wang Ling, who was being suppressed by the Celestial Emperor's Jade Seal and the 7 swords descending the Heavenly Mountain Seal, finally breathed a sigh of relief. This dog finally took human form. He was too tired from acting. Chapter 1078. The Kings. I had the power to get rid of the false and retain the true. Although the Shadow Palace world created by Shadow Dao's inner demon was rife with inner demons, and the food looked so real and gave off an irresistible aroma. Under Wang Ling's king's eye, everything was exposed in its true form. For Wang Ling to fall for a mere inner demon illusion in the Shadow Palace world was underestimating his ability as an immortal king too much. A large part of the reason why Wang Ling had pretended to fall for it was that after entering this world, he had sensed that the spirit power in Loopy Toad's body had already reached a critical point, and it just needed an opportunity to break through. Thus, Wang Ling had directed and acted out this play himself. It was just that Wang Ling hadn't expected the price of his self-directing and acting to attract Xin Yuan. As a baby, it would be a lie if Wang Ling didn't feel bitter. The principle of keeping a low profile couldn't be changed, so of course the fewer people who knew Wang Ling's identity, the better. Grenade throwing had only gained Wang Ling's approval after many years of testing. But he also didn't know much about Wang Ling's actual situation. There weren't many outsiders who truly knew about Wang Ling's situation, and Audiobook was the only human disciple. Audiobook had been pursuing Wang Ling for many years, and was a tight-lipped person who was very particular about his word. Wang Ling had finally decided to accept Audiobook as his disciple after many tests. It definitely wasn't because of those crispy noodle snack packets. Of course not. Hooray. Hurrah. But Xin Yuan's appearance now threw the situation into a momentary awkwardness. After all, Xin Yuan was a venerated immortal and had been named a legendary cultivator on Earth. Although his realm level was a little lower than that of Wang Zhen's in the domain of the gods, he was still a true expert. In short, it was true that he wasn't easy to fool. After Dog 2 evolved into a human form, Wang Ling knew that his acting was almost over, so he put away his appearance of having been invaded by the inner demon. Seeing this, Loopy Toad hurriedly urged Xin Yuan to cancel the sealing spell. While the Heavenly Emperor Jade Seal was very strong, it would in fact be pure fantasy for it to overwhelm Wang Ling. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Ling had to go all the way through the act, he could have blown the Heavenly Emperor Jade Seal away with just one breath. Loopy Toad transformed back into its dog form and ran over to check on Wang Ling, and heaved a sigh of relief when it saw that he was fine. It was scared to death by Wang Ling, but at the same time, Loopy Toad had its own doubts. How could such an evildoer like Little Master Ling let a heart demon enter his body so easily? Senior Dog, I think you're more handsome in human form. Xin Yuan also came over and started to shower it with praise. I think so too, but I'm not wearing any clothes. Loopy Toad laughed and broke out in a cold sweat. His human form, other than the fact that his hair was green, was even more handsome than he had imagined. It was a pity that he was not wearing any clothes, and it was not very elegant for him to be dangling in the air. For a moment, Wang Ling was silent. The main thing was that Wang Ling was thinking about how to face Xin Yuan. Wang Ling couldn't imagine what would happen if he got involved with this cultivator, who was hailed as a legend on Earth. School was about to start, and Wang Ling wanted to sort out his little sister's mess before that, so that he could spend his first year of high school in peace. But what Wang Ling had never expected was that it seemed like trouble was coming one after another like dominoes. It was as if everything had collapsed from the very beginning, and could no longer be stopped. Senior. Xin Yuan took the initiative to greet him. It seemed like a simple greeting, but the moment he said it, Wang Ling was pulled into another space. This was the wonderful sound technique, a spell that combined space and sound. When it was used, it could instantly pull a person into an independent spiritual space, which was soundless and impossible to guard against. Of course, Wang Ling wouldn't fall for it. No one could invade Wang Ling's spiritual world at will. He just wanted to see what on earth Xin Yuan wanted to say after using this technique on him. But then again, Wang Ling felt a little uncomfortable being pulled into a space as soon as they met. The red-haired young man in the spiritual space looked calm and composed as he faced Wang Ling. In a confrontation between experts, they often didn't show their emotions on the surface. Even if they were panicking to death, they would still look calm and at ease. Senior, you deliberately went berserk, right? Xin Yuan's words hit the nail on the head. From his previous contact with Xin Yuan, Wang Ling knew that this guy was a straightforward person who didn't like to beat around the bush. Actually, this was pretty good. It saved Wang Ling the trouble of making wild guesses. Wang Ling fell into a brief silence at these words. He didn't deny it, which was tacit agreement. I knew it. Jin Yuan sighed with emotion. Senior, I want to ask you for a favor. Wang Ling. It's like this, Senior. I've been working on restoring Drought Star. After exterminating Wind Spirit, I've been deep in thought. As a true expert in the cultivation world, I've been thinking about how to face life and the future path of cultivation. Senior Dog's appearance has given me a lot of inspiration. What Jin Yuan said next completely shocked Wang Ling. I know that Senior deliberately went berserk to provoke Senior Dog into displaying its true strength. Face your human form bravely, right? That wasn't right at all, okay? He was clearly the one who had provoked Loopy Toad to turn into a human. Loopy Toad hadn't been able to take a human form from the beginning. Why did it suddenly turn out that he was the one who had helped it regain its confidence? What kind of operation was this? I know, Senior. You don't have to say anything else. Senior Dog's human form. I know that green hair made Senior Dog lose its confidence a little. Furthermore, Senior Dog's human form is a little. Actually, I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but I still want to say. What is a little? Wang Ling's curiosity was piqued. A little short. As a man, it's normal for him to lack confidence when he's so short in human form. Jin Yuan sighed slightly. But I didn't expect Senior to actually use goading to help Senior Dog regain its confidence. Seeing Senior Dog throw itself forward to save you without any regard for its own safety, I was very touched. So based on the above, I have a presumptuous request. Speaking up to this point, Jin Yuan finally got down to business. Senior, please accept me as your disciple and let me learn from you. Tianjin. Chapter 1079. Another person who wanted to learn from him. Wang Ling was silent. It was just the summer break, but there were too many people who wanted to learn from him. First it was Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi, then Gu Xuanji came knocking on their door, and now there was Jin Yuan for the time being. He would arrange for all of them to enter number 60 high school first. After cleaning up the mess left behind by his little sister Wang Nuan, Wang Ling sent Audiobook a text message and asked him to arrange for Jin Yuan's enrollment. Although Wang Zhen and the others had already finished their transfer test, it was still possible to pull some strings and let Jin Yuan in. Of course, there was only one request, and that was to not let Jin Yuan enter Wang Ling's class as much as possible. As everyone knew, cultivation schools started at different times than regular high schools. It was finally number 60 high school's turn on November 4th. After the second half of the summer break and the teachers' efforts, number 60 high school's fragmented jade scroll of school history was recovered before the General Administration of 100 schools submitted it for review. With number 60 high school's application to become a key city cultivation high school, the second semester of senior grade 1 welcomed new transfer students. There were 2 in Wang Ling's class alone. Next, I'd like to introduce 2 new students to our class. Everyone, give us a round of applause to welcome Student Gu and Student Zhen. After Teacher Pan said this, the whole class immediately applauded in unison. Student Gu was Gu Xuanji, and Student Zhen was naturally Jin Yuan. This was the fake identity that Audiobook had arranged for Jin Yuan. Jin Yuan. It was named after Jin Yuan, which was a homonym for his name. After the applause, there was a lot of private discussion. Both of them are so handsome. One look and you can tell that the one with glasses is a top student, and the one with red hair. Doesn't he look like some kind of visual idol star? Featherlin stared blankly at Gu Xuanji and Jin Yuan in front of the stage. In her mind, she was already imagining an indescribable story between these 2 men. Afa Joshi's thinking was indeed terrifying. Wang Ling turned his gaze away and looked out the window with a lack of interest. Through the refraction of the glass, he could clearly see that Jin Yuan and Gu Xuanji were both staring in his direction. Before school started, Teacher Pan had always had the habit of killing the chicken to warn the monkey, in order to calm the crowd. This year, the chicken's spot clearly fell on Gu Xuanji and Jin Yuan. Teacher Pan first looked at Gu Xuanji. His hair was of a reasonable length and he looked refreshingly dressed. Because there hadn't been time to issue him a school uniform yet, This student Gu had specially chosen a set of blue tracksuits to blend in with number 60 High's environment without being too conspicuous. But since this was the chicken who had been killed at the beginning of the semester to warn the monkeys, Wang Ling felt that Teacher Pan's ability to nitpick was something Wang Ling couldn't hope to match. Student Gu, I know you did well in the transfer test. He was ranked first in the entire school on the enrollment list. But you still have to be humble, you know? Look at you. You're so tall that I can't even reach your shoulders. As a kind-hearted man, can't you be a little more considerate of your teacher's feelings? There are quite a few female students in our class. As a good student, you should set an example in the future. Understand? Old Pan's tone sounded as gentle as the spring breeze and rain. But in fact, a lot of the students could tell that she was deliberately nitpicking because she had nothing else to say. Of course, Teacher Pan also had another purpose, which was to test this student Gu's character. As the teacher in charge, Teacher Pan naturally had to figure out their personalities and formulate different policies to deal with different situations, and quickly draw them into the large group environment of the class, since they had just arrived and were unfamiliar with the other students in the exchange meeting. In Teacher Pan's view, Gu Xuanji's performance was really perfect. Very well, teacher, I understand. Gu Xuanji smiled so gently that Teacher Pan actually felt like she was in love for the first time. You can go. Teacher Pan was speechless. She pointed to the last seat in the middle row and hurriedly dismissed Gu Xuanji. A transfer student with a good temper and a good personality. It was really rare. But now, Teacher Pan wasn't worried about Gu Xuanji at all, and instead started to worry about the other female students in the class. Such an outstanding child in all aspects was definitely a catalyst for puppy love. The current cultivation world had a more liberal view of love, and there weren't that many rules and regulations as long as one paid attention to safety. But Old Pan was a more traditional person. She also valued grades more. She wasn't opposed to puppy love, but if it affected grades, Old Pan would definitely put a stop to it. Teacher Pan pondered this deeply in her heart. It looked like she would have to pay attention to the other students in the class for a while. After speaking about Gu Xuanji, Teacher Pan turned her gaze to Jin Yuan next to him. After comparing Jin Yuan with Gu Xuanji, Jin Yuan's image in Teacher Pan's heart had already directly dropped below the 60 mark. Student Jin, I know your grades are also very good. You ranked second this time, but you should also know this, right? Our school doesn't allow students to dye their hair. And what's with those earrings in your ears? You're a boy, but you have more jewelry than me? Teacher Pan scolded him in public. It was only at that moment that Jin Yuan realized his problem. He had been so focused on learning from Wang Ling that he had forgotten that he was already a high school student in this environment. He had grown his red hair for a long time, and was already used to it. It just looked a little unconventional. As for the earrings, this was another of Jin Yuan's mystical ear studs, which was a powerful restraining magic weapon, and a very practical defensive magic treasure. Realizing that he was in the wrong, Jin Yuan took off the earrings of his own accord, and then explained to Teacher Pan about his hair. Teacher, I'm really sorry. My hair is always red because of my fire cultivation technique. Even if I dye it black, I'll change it back when I sleep. This doesn't count as dyeing my hair, right? But I know that my hairstyle might not be very good, so I'll do it after school. Is it because of your cultivation technique? Teacher Pan was skeptical. It could only be said that as a pioneer teacher at number 60 High, Teacher Pan was in the end Teacher Pan. With many years of teaching experience, she immediately thought of an idea for Jin Yuan. How about this, Student Jun? You can directly shave your head bald, so you don't have to worry about your hair color. Since our school is a big group, we naturally have to be united. In fact, Teacher Pan's words weren't absolute. If Jin Yuan wasn't willing, she could actually take a step back. Previously, there had been cases of students in other classes running away from home because of their hairstyles after quarreling with their parents and teachers, and Teacher Pan didn't want that to happen again. But the outcome was beyond her expectations once again. It was hard for her to imagine that this student Jun would actually have an unusually good temper, and she hurriedly agreed. Teacher Pan, don't worry, I'll do it after school today. In the back of the classroom, Wang Ling sighed emotionally in his heart as he listened to Jin Yuan's words. Whether it was Jin Yuan or Gu Xuanji, these were two men who stood at the top of the cultivation world. They were already calm and unperturbed in the face of mortal affairs. Old Li was long past the age of rebellion. And just now Wang Ling had also figured something out. He realized that the arrival of Gu Xuanji and Jin Yuan had drawn a lot of attention from the class. As a result, his presence had become even lower. Perhaps the addition of these two people wasn't as bad as he had thought. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.